All right, welcome to another edition of the Vikings, Talking Vikings History, better known as the Vintage, with Catch and TB. Today's show, we are talking about Hall of Famers. It doesn't matter how long they play with the Vikings. If they played one season, 2 seasons, if they're in the Hall of Fame and they played for the Vikings, then we're going to talk about them.
Skol Vikings, let's win this game. Skol Vikings, honor your name. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight. Go Vikings, run out the score. You'll hear us yell for more. V-I-K-I-N-G-S. Skol Vikings, let's roll.
All right. So the Vikings have a lot of Hall of Famers. Some are considered Vikings. Some just played a couple of seasons with them. If we go, the first guy who played for the Vikings who was in the Hall of Fame, that would be 1970. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that'd be Hugh McAnally.
Yep, Hugh was mostly known as a 49er. He played with the Niners with White, Tittle, and R.C. Owens, Joe the Jet Perry. But he spent 2 years with the Vikings, 61 and 62. And then after that, I believe he went to Detroit. I could be wrong.
He spent 52 to 60 with the 49ers, 61, 62 with Minnesota, 63 with the Giants, and 64 with the Lions.
Okay, so he did spend time with the Giants. But yeah, he's mostly remembered as a 49er. So, yes. But he did spend 2 years here with the Vikings. He was in the backfield with Fred Tarkenton and Tommy Mason. That was the starting backfield.
Yeah, he was. He joined the newly formed Vikings in 61 through the expansion draft. Yep. That year, he led the team in rushing and had 7 total touchdowns, including the first punt return touchdown since his rookie season. He was in his 6th Pro Bowl that season. In his second season with the Vikings, he held scoreless for the first time in his career.
Yeah.
Then that's probably why they released him, because he didn't. They wanted to emphasize youth, and he didn't score at all. So
yeah, they had also signed Bill Brown in 62. So I think in 63, Bill Brown became a starter.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't know he played for Minnesota.
Yep, he was number 39.
Yeah. So I mean, he was. I mean, he had a short career, but it was a good career. I mean, he was a 5-time first team All Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler, All 50 decade team, Hall of Fame for the 49ers. His number is retired for the 49ers as well.
Yes, it is.
So he had 5,200 career rushing yards, 4.7 yards per carry, 38 rushing touchdowns, 20 receiving touchdowns. So he had 58 touchdowns. So that's a obviously I think probably injuries probably slowed him down a little bit, but he was definitely worth the Hall of Fame nod. Even though he spent a couple years with Minnesota, he still, like I said, they didn't have to play with Minnesota long, but as long as they played in Minnesota and they're in the Hall of Fame, they count on this list. Yep. So the next guy we're probably going to talk a little bit more about, the next Viking that was in the next guy, actually, he only spent 1 year, 2 years with Minnesota. He was okay, hold a second here. My list got screwed up. Okay. All right. Sorry. I'm doing this on the fly, guys. I don't have a producer. Okay. So, yeah, Fred Tarkenton was the next Hall of Famer inducted in 86. So we all know about Mr. Francis.
And Fran had been up for votes, I think, a couple of times before, and he had been passed over. And at that time, they were they were saying that, especially here in the Twin Cities, does Fran have the Killebrew curse? Because in that same stretch of time, Harmon Killebrew, the former Minnesota Twins outfielder, he had been up for the Hall of Fame in baseball. and he kept getting passed over and passed over and passed over. And
Which is funny because he's the logo for MLB baseball.
yeah, and Fran was getting passed over, and that's when the speculation started that, well, Fran didn't win a Super Bowl, blah 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 blah. But remember, when Fran retired, even up till he got into the Hall of Fame, he still had a majority of the passing records in the NFL, in NFL history. So he had he had been passed over a couple times at least. T-Bass, Fran was passed over. He was not a first ballot Hall of Famer. He was not.
It makes you wonder if is that because he was a Viking or because his
It
attitude?
was because part of it was, it wasn't so much as he was a Viking as it was he didn't win a Super Bowl. That's what it was.
It shouldn't be that way though, because it's not a team award,
right?
It's an individual award,
right? But at the time, and most of your people that voted were the old school writers, and many of them thought Fran was a hole jerk, and he wasn't that good anyway. That was that old school mentality. The one guy that did the voting in the twin for Minneapolis was Sid Hartman.
Yeah.
So Sid always, Sid is really going to come into play here later on, and with a couple of guys you mentioned.
I don't care if a guy's nice or not. I don't care if he did interviews with me or not. I don't care if he's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer. That's petty stuff. Oh, he never did interviews with me, so I'm not going to vote for him. Come on, grow up.
Well, and here's the thing too. You got current guys in the Hall of Fame now. You're kind of scratching your head like, what the hell are they doing in there?
Yeah.
Seriously, it's almost like now
some of the Steelers that are in the Hall of Fame.
And oh my God, if I get the chance, Fran has been the one to say that the Steelers were the first team he ever knew that used steroids.
Yeah,
he was the first whenever he knew it. It wasn't a secret. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a popularity, and then there's a lot of bias. And Minnesota was a small market team also. So that could have had a lot to do with it too. But remember, Fran was with the Giants and he was terrible. He wasn't very good. So that New York press were already in on Fran, and we already had a problem with Fran in the first place. So, but he finally did get in, and he deservedly should have been in.
Yeah, the fact that he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, it just speaks of pettiness. It's just, I don't know. It's, I can't remember what baseball player, there's a baseball player who took forever to get voted into the Hall of Fame because he didn't interview with some of the reporters who were on Hall of Fame. So it was like, they're not voting him in because he didn't do interviews. It's like, how petty are you, So,
it took Harmon Killebrew a long time to get in there too. The former Twin. It took him years to get in.
And if Rod Carew didn't play for California, probably would have taken him longer too.
Right. I think the only one that got in right away was Kirby Puckett.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's with the Vikings, it's two things. They're in Minnesota, and then they never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. So he played for the Vikings from 61 to 68. 66. Then he was Giants 67 to 71. And then back with Minnesota from 72 to 78. Most valuable player in 75. Offensive player of the year in 75. All pro first team 75. Second all pro 73. 9-time Pro Bowler. Passing yard leader 1978. NFL passing touchdown leader 75. Completion percentage leader 77. He won the Burt Bell Award. I'm not sure what that is. He won that 75. Of course, he's 50th greatest Viking, 25th anniversary team, 40th anniversary team. Vikings Ring of Honor. He's one of the Vikings who has his number retired.
He was the first one.
So
he was the first Viking to ever have his number retired, and that was he retired in 78. The Vikings retired his number in 79.
Yeah. So he should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's probably one of the Vikings have a lot of Hall of Famers, but there's some that are like known as Vikings. Like the Hugh McNally, he's probably not considered a Viking.
No, Fran
But
is considered a Viking because he did 2
yes,
stints. So,
right.
and he was a starter in both of those stints. And I mean, even asked some of the guys that played with Fran, as much of a jerk as he was, and he wasn't the most liked guy. Stu Voice said it best. Our best years were with Fran Tarkenton at quarterback.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if they would have won that Super Bowl if he was a quarterback instead of Cap.
Bud wanted to keep him. If Bud gets his wish and Fran stays in '67, Cap doesn't come to Minnesota. Cap is probably a Houston Oiler.
Yeah.
He's probably a Houston Oiler because Houston wanted him also, and we got him. But if Fran stays in six, when Fran, because Bud wanted to keep him, but Fran had it in his head that he could go to New York and be a winner and take eyes off of Joe Namath.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields is the modern day Joe Cap.
Yeah,
He can run, but he can't throw.
yeah, and now I don't even know if Justin Fields is gonna even, because I'm sure Ryan Poles is not married to him. So
No, because he didn't draft him.
Ryan
So.
Poles move on from him. So
Yeah, so we can come back on Tarkenton later. Next guy only played 2 years for Minnesota, 80 to 81. He was inducted in the 87. He's probably more known for being a Dolphin than anything else. It's Jim Langer.
Yep. Jim Langer spent 2 years with us, but his best years are with the Dolphins in those Super Bowl teams.
Yep.
He's a Minnesota native. He lived in Royalton, Minnesota. So he was a Minnesota guy through and through. Even lived up here. I think when he passed away, he was living in Royalton. But his All Pro years were with Miami. He was the one that they interviewed him years later, and they talked about how the Vikings almost beat that '72 Dolphins team. The Vikings almost won that game. And Langer recalled it, how it went down and everything. They were talking about it. And Langer said that 72 team that we faced was better than that 73 team that we faced in the Super Bowl. To a man. And I was kind of, I don't see how they were better. But he always said that 72 Vikings team was better than the 73 team.
And that's that was the 72 Dolphins team, as you guys know, is the undefeated team.
Yep.
And if it wasn't for Lurtzema, the Vikings probably beat the Dolphins that year.
I bring that up every time I see him. I used to when I used to see him. I used to bring that up. I saw from what people I talked to about that, he said it was a bad call. A couple of other people said it was a bad call. It was, and back then, I mean, the hits that they were putting on people back then, what Lurtzema did to him was like a softball hit. It really was.
Yeah.
And he got called for roughing a passer, which kept the drive alive and they scored. But compared to what we see how they call roughing a passer nowadays, I mean, back then it was almost like a regular sack.
Yeah.
Like right now, that he probably would have got flagged for it today too. But the fact that he got flagged for it back then in that era of football was really just unheard of.
Yeah, so he says that he wanted to stay closer to his home and was accordingly traded to the Vikings prior to the 80 season, playing his final 2 seasons with them before retiring after 81 campaign. He played 22 games as a Viking player and his overall 151 games. He also made one of his total 110 starts for the Vikings. Mm-hmm. 81 was his last year in the league. He was a 6-time Pro Bowler, 4-time first team All-Pro, and 2-time Super Bowl champion. After he quit playing, he worked for WJONI 1240 radio station, and he handled the color commentary duties for the football broadcast of St. Cloud State.
Yep.
So he's Dolphins honor roll and Walk of Fame. That's their version of the Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
He was also there's a national top NCAA Division II lineman that's named after Jim Langer as well.
Yeah, the Jim Langer Award. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, T-Bass. Langer was a starting center on that 72 team.
Yep. The high school field at Royalton's named after him as well.
He retired to Minnesota, so he came back. Bottom line is, a lot of these guys, they wanted to play for Bud too.
Yeah.
They wanted to play for Bud.
So yeah, that's so. I mean, I think he's forgotten about as well because he only played a couple seasons.
Well, and he was a backup. The guy that was starting for us then was Dennis Swilly, who was actually a very underrated center. He should have been to a few Pro Bowls and he wasn't, but he was a very underrated center. And the Vikings had went younger. So when Langer got to the team, he was he was up there. He did do some long snapping. And he did start the final game at the Met. Langer did start the final game of his NFL career. He started against the Chiefs in 81. So Bud did start him in that game. So
yeah. So I mean, he had a good career. Like I said, I remember growing up in Florida, it being Dolphin territory. He'd always be on like the Dolphin shows and.
he was a perennial All
Yeah.
Pro.
Yeah.
I think he's part of the All 70s team. Him, Larry Little, Bob Kuchenberg. That's the offensive line that did the damage to the Vikings in Super Bowl 8.
Yeah.
That inside.
Yeah, he's Dolphins Walk of Fame. He was on the NFL's All 70 decade team.
Yep.
Yeah, not just the Dolphins All 70s team, but the NFL's 70 team as well.
He was on the NFL's All 70s team.
Yeah. So the next guy would be 1988. And we know and love this guy very well, Mr. Alan Page.
My idol. Funny thing about Alan was when they announced that Alan was brought into the Hall of Fame, Alan was very vocal about he wasn't sure if he was going in as a Viking or as a Bear. He was still, and this had been 10 years, he was still upset with the Viking organization. I mean, he put it out there, well, the Vikings fired me. They fired me. Why would I want to go in as to an employer and represent an employer that fired me? He was very vocal about that. And the ones that reached out to him and kind of changed his mind, I think was Mike Lynn. He reached out the olive branch.
So Mike Lynn actually did do something good, huh?
Mike Lynn reached out the olive branch, but Alan was still bitter about 78. He was still bitter, mostly towards Bud Grant. They stayed, that relationship, it got better, but it never really got better. After a while, you let bygones be bygones and just move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, he wasn't sure if he was going in as a Viking or as a Bear. He got in. He went in as a Bear. He had he went as a Viking. I take that back. He went in as a Viking. He had the superintendent for Minneapolis schools do his introduction or induct him in to the Hall of Fame. And then later that year, during the Philadelphia game, Alan Page got his Hall of Fame ring. His jersey became the second jersey to officially be retired. And that was 88. Now, as far as retired jerseys go, yes, Jim Marshall's jersey is retired. Jim Marshall's at that time wasn't officially retired. It was probably the worst kept secret that nobody was ever going to wear that jersey again. But Jim's jersey wasn't officially retired until 1999. So, but yeah, Allen's jersey was the second official, number 88 was the second official number retired by the Vikings. So,
yeah, they don't have very many retired jerseys, but the ones that they have were
right. There's some that should be retired that aren't. Carl Ehlers, Paul Krause, 81 and 22, Randy Moss.
84 should definitely be retired.
So it's like, But yeah, I mean, what can you say about him? The man was the NFL. He was all pro for many years. He was the NFL most valuable player in '71 as a defensive tackle. Bud Grant even said it. Allen changed how you play defensive tackle. Um, Defensive tackles weren't
Well,
considered
he
like
was
focal points.
wasn't he pretty much one of the first or the first defensive tackle to use a 3-point stance as opposed to the 4-point stance?
No, they all did.
Okay.
Lilly did it. Merlin Olsen all used it. The ones that used the 4-point were usually kind of on the nose. They were like the middle guard. And that was when the NFL was more of in a 5-2 type of thing. But a lot of when they moved the middle linebacker off the line, it just was you just had him over the center, like Sam Huff and Bill George.
Yeah.
But for Allen's quickness off the line caused a lot of problems for a lot of guards. Matter of fact, Jerry Kramer said, I realized when it was time for me to retire when I went up against Alan Page and he kept beating me. He knew that it was time to retire. And Allen had that effect on a lot of guards. When the Dolphins beat us in Super Bowl VIII, their main objective was to run right at Alan Page.
Well, because he was 240 at the time?
245. And
Yeah.
a lot of the guards weren't very big either. A lot of your guards were probably, Ed White for the Vikings was 247. Most of your guards were 250. You didn't have the 280s and the 290s. They were just, average built guys, but a little muscular. But yeah, they ran right at Allen.
So the Vikings have 6 retired jerseys.
Okay.
10, Fran Tarkenton. It was retired 1979. 53, Tingelhoff was retired in 2001. Jim Marshall was retired in 99. Big K 77 forever, Corey Stringer. Number 77, 2001. Chris Carter, number 80, 2003. And Alan Page is 88. So they have so that's 6 jerseys. And so out of the 6 jerseys, 4 of them are Hall of Famers.
Yep. Yeah.
Jim Marshall should be a Hall of Famer. Corey Stringer probably would have been a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
If he kept playing, because he's Pat O'Neill is good, but Corey Stringer was much better as a right tackle. So he was also a huge human being as well. So
T-Bass had a good question. Did the Vikings demand he stop running marathons because of weight issues? If I remember right, Bud did not like the fact that he had lost so much weight. But Allen was at that point in his football career and kind of in his life where he was, done with football. Allen even says that football was just a part of was just one chapter in his life. It wasn't a major part. Bud didn't like the fact that he had lost weight. He went down. We drafted him. I think he was 265. He won the MVP. He was 245. And I think that last Super Bowl, Allen was weighing maybe 220, 221. Because I know when the Vikings cut him, now he was cut. He was not traded. Alan Page was cut. Allen weighed 221 and a half. So that had a lot to do with it. But Allen also says that they changed the defensive game plan on him. They changed the scheme, which had more to do with it. Why Moss but not Carter? Oh, you mean is Carter's number retired?
Number 80, Chris Carter.
Moss's number will get retired.
It has to.
It has to. I don't know why it hasn't. That's on the Wilfs. But you got to be careful too, because you run out of numbers.
But with the NFL now, with you pretty much being able to wear any number you want, other than the 90s and 50s as a receiver, 60s,
right?
You still got 0 to 19 as a receiver, 0 to actually
anybody can wear 0 to 49 because Davenport is wearing 0.
Right. So 0 to 49 for receivers probably, and then
If I'm a receiver,
89.
you know
So,
what? I'm not wearing 0. I'm wearing 00. Why
right.
can't they wear 00?
And if I'm a Viking, I am not wearing 84
No,
because you
no.
always get compared to the man who wore it best.
Yeah, there's certain numbers you just don't wear as a Minnesota Viking.
Yeah.
Why Moss's number is not retired is a good question. That is on the Wilfs. They should have retired it when he went into the Hall of Fame. When he got into the Ring of
Yes.
Honor, it should have been retired. But
That should have been the ceremony that same night.
yeah, there should have been a ceremony. But yeah, that's on the Wilfs.
So the next guy played 2 years for Minnesota. I think he might have been, if he wasn't the first, he might have been he's definitely one of the first kickers in the Hall of Fame. That would be Jan Stenerud. He was inducted in 1991.
Yep. He made the All NFL, what was it, 75th anniversary team?
He was for this NFL. He was NFL 75th anniversary team and the 100th anniversary team.
Right.
He's in the Packers Hall of Fame. He's in the Chiefs Hall of Fame. His number 3 is retired by the Chiefs. So yeah, of course he's Super Bowl champion, AFL champion, four-time first team. So he's 2-time first team AFL. Yeah, 2 second teams. So when you think of kickers, he was probably the best at that time.
He was the best. And okay, when he came to the Vikings in '84, he was our only member of the NFC Pro Bowl team to go to the Pro Bowl. It was Jan Stenerud. The only Pro Bowler we had in '84, and that was Les Steckel's year, was the kicker. So I think he's a Hall of Famer. Oh, hell yeah. He's a Hall of Famer.
So he wasn't the first kicker, but George Blanda was a quote unquote a quick kicker, but he did more than that. So Lou Groza was probably the kicker, but he played more than just kicker as well, too. Didn't
He played tackle.
Yeah. And
He
then
was
Ray
an offensive
Guy.
tackle. And Ray Guy was a punter.
So
Strictly a punter.
So for strictly being a kicker, he was the first true kicker inducted into the Hall of Fame.
And he was soccer style.
He was one of the first soccer style.
Yeah, he was one of the first soccer style, and he kicked 3 field goals against us in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I believe he kicked 3 field goals. I could be wrong.
He was from Norway. He came to the United States on a ski jumping scholarship to Montana State. Wow, that's really weird.
Yeah, he was here to ski.
Yeah,
he was not here to play football.
Yeah. I guess the ski coach, the ski jump coach, told the head coach of his kicking abilities, and I needed a kicker, so they offered him a tryout. And of course, as to say, the rest is history.
Right.
But yeah, so it's kind of interesting. There's another guy who's coming up later, who also is in the Hall of Fame. And there's not too many of this position in the Hall of Fame. It's just kind of funny that they both played for Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
So after Stenerud was inducted in '91, there's a pretty big gap to the next guy. So it looks like it was 7 years later that the next guy was inducted, and he's actually the all-time interceptions leader in the NFL. I don't know if he's more known for a Redskin or a Viking, but he is he's in the Hall of Fame.
You forgot one. There was one before him, but it wasn't a player.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. It's a different screen. If it's a different screen, they're not on the same screen. For players, he was the next player.
Right, and that would be Paul Krause.
Well, actually, no. He was in 98. That's right, 98. Yeah. So they're actually there's 2 guys, the 2 non-players that are in the Hall of Fame for Minnesota were inducted between 91 and 98.
Right.
So the first one, we've talked about this guy before. This guy was pretty vital to getting the Vikings off the ground, and getting them to be the organization that they are today. and he was also a player too. A lot of people don't realize that he was also a player, but that'd be Mr. Jim Finks.
Yeah, Jim Finks.
What up, Barbara?
The greatest GM we've ever had. He built what became those classic teams. That was all Jim Finks. He's the one that got Tarkington. He's the one that drafted Foreman. He's the one that drafted Page. He drafted Eller. He got Gary Larson in a trade. He got Hilgenberg, Washington. He got Yeary, Ed White. The players actually liked him. He was actually a nice guy. Yeah, there were a few players that didn't like him, but generally most of the players liked him. So yeah, he gets as much credit for building this Vikings franchise as anybody. And he built the Bears. He made the Bears contenders, and he made the Saints contenders, and he made the Cubs contenders. So the guy knew what he was doing.
Yeah. So as an administrator, he was Calgary Stampeders from 57 to 64. He also he was a player administrator at the same, because 57, he played for the Calgary Stampeders. He was also administrator.
Mm-hmm.
So 64 to 73, he was the Vikings. Then with the Bears, 74 to 82. And then with the Cubs, 83 and 84. And then he went back to football, 86 to 92 for the Saints.
Yep. Yeah, he built the Saints up. He's the reason the Saints went to that first playoff game. Unfortunately, they faced his old team and got their asses kicked. But yeah,
he's Vikings Ring of Honor, Saints Ring of Honor, Saints Hall of Fame, and then he was also Pro Football Hall of Fame, of course, 95. Yep. His NFL, he played for the Steelers in the NFL. He was a quarterback. His all-time quarterback rating was 54.7, but he wasn't a very good player, but he was a hell of a GM. So, yeah, he said in 72, Finks made a daring trade for the Vikings. That's when he brought in Fran Tarkenton.
Yeah, he brought in Fran.
Yeah.
And I'm sure to bring Fran back, I'm sure Jim has sat down and talked to Bud about it too, because the team needed a quarterback. And being that, Bud wanted to keep Fran in 67, and Fran was basically, nobody wanted him from what I understood, because he was just such a malcontent. He was an a-hole. And I'm sure it was Bud that pounded the table and said, let's get the guy.
Yeah. He pretty much made the Bears the dominant team of the 80s that they were.
Yeah, through the draft.
Yeah. And the reason he left the Bears because George Halas did not consult him with hiring Mike Ditka as the head coach.
Yeah, Ditka. What happened was the defensive players had wrote in a thing that they wanted to keep Buddy Ryan as a defensive coordinator. And I almost think Finks was going to go that way with maybe making Buddy Ryan the head coach. And they brought in Ditka, and there was already problems. There was already friction between Ditka and Ryan, from what I understood. So it all came to head in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So as he was the junior manager of the Vikings, he won. Macon Start dynasty that produced 11 division championships, 4 Super Bowl appearances, the only NFL championship in the Vikings history. He put together the Purple People Eaters.
Mm-hmm.
All that Gary Larson trade.
Yeah, that was all him.
Yep, that was all. He was the reason why the Vikings were there were.
And he signed good free agents. He signed John Henderson.
Yeah.
He signed Wally Hilgenberg. He signed other guys. I can't think of right off the top of my head. But he got the 3 draft choices, number ones for Fran Tarkenton in 67.
Yeah, and then Joe Kapp was the quarterback of the Calgary Stampeders when he was the GM there. So that's how he got Joe Kapp to come in.
Yeah. So he was familiar with Kapp. Bud was familiar with him too, because Bud had played against him. So Bud was familiar with Joe Kapp. So Oh, T-Bass has a question here. Who was the kicker who kicked barefoot in the 80s? I think he played for
Was
the
that
Eagles.
Rich Carlos?
No, that was Tony Franklin.
Okay.
Tony Franklin kicked for the Eagles first, and then he kicked for the Patriots in the Super Bowl against the Bears.
Did the
Carlos
Vikings
came
have a
in,
barefoot kicker?
yeah, Carlos. He came in. I think Carlos started with Denver because he was kicking for them in the Super Bowls, and then he came to the Vikings.
Yeah, did he win that? The Vikings won a game 21 to
The
14, I think, and it was all field goals. It was all field
yeah,
goals.
that was the Jerry Burns meltdown.
Right,
Game.
and then Rich Carlos was a kicker, made all the field
Rich
goals.
Carlos was the
Yeah.
kicker. Yes, you're right, T-Bass. Jim Finks did trade for Paul Krause. The Redskins coach Otto Graham basically traded Paul Krause because he said he couldn't tackle, so he traded him. And yes, and Finks brought him to Minnesota. So
yeah, so he was. Yeah, he's as a player, he wasn't very good, like I said, but he was a hell of a GM.
Yeah, he was a football guy. He knew football.
Yeah.
I think he just knew sports because he had got the Cubs to the postseason for the first time in like years in '84.
And he was also the GM. The Saints never made the playoffs before he got there, and he gave them their first winning season ever when he was the GM, when he hired Jim Mora as the head coach. Yeah, and just a second season as GM, the Saints won 12 games for their first winning season ever. He was named Executive of the Year for the second time.
Yep.
Yeah. When Pete Rozelle retired as commissioner, Finks was the leading candidate to replace him. He was the only candidate to put forward for the job by a 6-owner search committee.
I think by that time, because I want to say Finks passed away from cancer.
He died in 94.
Right. And I think he might have had cancer. And I think it had been, he probably wanted to slow down. But I actually kind of was like, he should be the commissioner.
Yeah. Well, Wellington Mara, Lamar Hunt, Art Modell, Robert Perrins, Dan Rooney, and Ralph Wilson, the OG owners, they all voted for him. But the 11 new owners voted for Paul Tagliabue.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
They held a vote. It was 13 for Finks, 13 for Paul Tagliabue. In a third meeting, a compromise was reached by the two groups that would make Tagliabue the commissioner and Finks president in charge of football operations. Finks declined the position.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I'm trying to think who the Viking owners were, because that was.
This was
89. Was that 89 or 90?
86 would be 87. In 89, Pete Rozelle retired in 89, so that would be the committee of 10, right?
Well, no, Mike Lynn was still there,
but he wasn't an owner, though, right?
He was never an owner. Max Winter at that time, I think, had ownership with both Erwin Jacobs, and he brought Carl Pohlad in, the Twins owner. So
Pohlad owned the Twins?
Yeah.
I mean, the Vikings,
He was trying to, and then Mike Lynn put up a stink. And so that's kind of how we ended up with the gang of 10.
Well, I just hope Pohlad wouldn't have ran the Vikings as cheaply as he ran the Twins back then.
No, and he would have been the first one, I think, to have ownership in both an NFL team and a Major League Baseball team. But Pohlad could do no wrong because the Twins were coming off of a World Series win. So he was loved here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, the Pohlads actually have more money than most of the MLB owners. They got that Pepsi money. Yeah. So the next guy inducted would be the OG head coach, Mr. Bud Grant.
Yep.
He was inducted pretty much the same year.
Yeah, he was inducted, 94?
Let me see. Let me go. I think Finks was 94 and 95, I think was
Finks might have been 96.
Let me go back to where,
because I believe Finks had passed away.
Finks was 95, Bud Grant
It was 94.
Yeah, it was 94. They had. Oh, okay, I got it.
Yes,
So,
our best,
Wikipedia had it wrong. Yeah.
yeah, and
Okay.
our best years up until then were the years of Jim Finks and Bud Grant. They worked hand in hand. Bud, this was a case where Sid Hartman pounded the table to get Bud in. I mean, literally, but he stormed out of a meeting in one of the final votes. Close to final vote. He stormed out because they wouldn't consider Bud Grant, and he lost it. He was going to get his friend in there no matter what, and rightfully so.
Well, he deserved it. I mean,
Yeah, and but once again, what's the knock on Bud? He lost the Super Bowls. That was the knock.
Well, he was head coach of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for 10 seasons. He won the Grey Cup 4 times.
Yep.
When he was the head coach of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, he was a three-sport athlete: football, basketball, and baseball. He played an NBA for the Minneapolis Lakers, where he won the 1950 NBA Finals. Grant left the NBA to play in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, before joining the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So he has a statue in front of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers stadium.
Yeah, get that. He's got a statue in Winnipeg, and the Wilfs couldn't give him one here in Minneapolis. And he's a Minnesota man. I mean,
when you think of the Vikings, it's Bud Grant.
Yeah. It's first and foremost, it's Bud Grant. How do you not honor him with some sort of statue? Yeah, there's a street named after him. It's a dead end street, but he got a street. But I don't understand. I question the Wilfs on a lot of their stuff.
Oh, it's history.
Yeah, which they don't know any of it. We had a team here before 1998. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. So he played. So he was a first round draft. He was a 14th overall pick in the 1950 NFL draft.
Was that the Philly?
Yeah, it was the Philadelphia Eagles. Yep, and a 4th round selection for the Minneapolis Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
So he chose to play. He played 35 games during the NBA season.
And the funny thing was, a part owner of the Lakers at that time was Sid Hartman, his friend.
Yes. He was also the Lakers general manager.
Yep. Was Sid Hartman. And Sid and Bud were friends all the way back to their days at the University of Minnesota. They were very, very close guys. Very close.
Yeah. And he played in his first season with the Eagles. Grant played as a defensive end and led the team in sacks, an unofficial stat at the time. And then he switched to offense as a wide receiver for a second season, and the club ranked second in the NFL with receiving yards with 997 yards on 56 catches, including 7 touchdowns. His contract expired at the end of the 52 season. They refused to pay him what he thought he was worth. So then he went to Winnipeg, where he left in Manitoba in 53. He became the first professional player to play out his option and then leave for another team. So he played he was all-star 3 times. He led the conference in pass receptions for the 53, 54, 56 season and receiving yards. He also holds the distinction of having made 5 interceptions in a playoff game, played on October 25th, 53, which was a record in a professional football. And he played for the Grey Cup in 53, but lost to the Hamilton Tiger Caps in the 4 Grey Cup games. So not only did he coach 4 Grey Cup games, he played in one as a player. That's 11 total Grey Cups. He won 4. So,
and he also was the coach that the Minnesota Vikings wanted in '61 when they started. It was Bud, but Bud was having success in Canada, so he stayed. Yep. But Bud was their guy.
Yeah. So Grant was known for his discipline, in his teams, and displaying a lack of emotion during games, which is different than people showing lack of emotion today, I guess. He required his team to stand at attention in a straight line during an entire national anthem play before the game, and even had national anthem practice.
Yes, he
Grant,
did.
Grant required outdoor practice during the winter to get players used to the cold weather, and did not allow heaters on the sideline during games. As per latter practice, Grant that the heaters presented on the sidelines, that the players would gather around the source of the warmth, but if the heaters were not present, the players would be paying attention to the game.
Which worked to their benefit. It
Yes.
worked to their benefit when those years.
Could you imagine that nowadays? Not allowing players to use a heater during a cold weather game.
God.
Could you imagine Could you imagine the kickback that he would get on that?
Oh, they'd be crying their eyes out. Oh, for the little things that Bud did. I mean, players nowadays they'd be crying their eyes out because they're so soft. And Bud was known back in the day for having one of the most lenient training camps.
Yeah.
They did a lot of hitting, but the camps weren't long. The practices weren't long because Bud didn't like training camp either. And they did what they had to do, and then they got the hell out of Dodge. But yeah, he was ahead of his time. He didn't take the game seriously. He was emotional. He was very emotional, especially after games when he would get on the refs. But he realized that, it's not the end of the world. And that's kind of the way he was. One thing you didn't hear from Bud Grant was burnout.
Yeah.
Like you heard at that time, I think John Madden was the first one to say it was burnout.
Dick Vermeil.
And then Dick Vermeil. But, Bud Bud would cut practice early just depending on which direction the ducks were flying so he could go hunting.
Yeah.
That's
so true, Davey.
Oh, God, yes. They would lose their mind. They would lose their mind.
I can only imagine what the Players Association would. His Wikipedia page is so long.
I already know most of it. I mean, it's and the players, very few players. Most of the players love Bud. I mean, yeah, he had his falling out with like Alan Page and Carl Eller, and one player who didn't like him was Phil Wise. But for the most part, I mean, most of the players that play for Bud love Bud.
Yeah,
they love Bud.
And he's only one of two coaches to lead a team to the Grey Cup and a Super Bowl.
Who's the other? Marv Levy?
Yep.
And he had a hard time getting into the Hall of Fame too, but but not winning the Super Bowl is probably what kept a lot of these guys, and is still keeping some of these guys out. It took them, I mean, like I said, Sid Hartman had to beat on the table to get Bud in there. And you see what happens with Fran, and then Paul Krause was next. He's the interception leader, so how do you not get him in there? You had to put him in there. And Paul had been out of football for 20 years before he got into the Hall of Fame.
Let's see. Paul Krause was 1998, and he retired in 1979.
Yeah, with 81 interceptions. And he had to wait that long to get into the Hall of Fame. And then one of the, and Paul said this, he said one of the knocks on Paul as a player was he didn't tackle. Well, Paul also said with the front seven that I had, if I had the tackle, they weren't doing their job. I mean, and then he said, I don't tackle, but yet I made 14 tackles in a Super Bowl game.
Yeah.
And, why did he make 14 tackles? Because the front seven weren't doing their job. He was the last line of defense. So his job was to sit there and play, center field.
So when the Vikings traded for him, they traded Marlon McKeever, and a 7th round pick.
Nothing. McKeever was average at best. Paul played quarterback in college. He played quarterback at Iowa. And his coach, I believe, was Jerry Burns.
Yeah.
his teammate, one of his teammates was Wally Hilgenberg. I think somebody else was, I forget, there was another player that was his teammate also, big name player. Um, but yeah, I mean, Paul, he came here and he was just to play center field, read the quarterback. And when you had the front four that we had, that helped, that helped. So, and he's also most famous for being the holder on field goals and PATs for Paul
Which
Krause,
is
for
you would never think.
Fred Cox.
Could you imagine Harrison Smith doing that today? I mean, so he had 81 interceptions, 1,100 return yards, 6 touchdowns, and he had 19 fumble recoveries. He's a 3-time first-team All-American, 3-time second-team, 8-time Pro Bowler, NFL interception leader, Vikings Ring of Honor, 50th greatest Vikings, 25th anniversary team, 40th anniversary team. He's also Washington Commanders 50 greatest players.
Yeah, and he led the NFC in interceptions with 10 and 75. Only player that had more than him was Mel Blount, and he had 11 with the Steelers. But Blount, I believe, was a cornerback.
Yeah, he was a corner.
He was a cornerback, and Paul was a safety. And that was, and it just, his job was to play center field. Basically read the quarterback.
So yeah, he had a total. Yeah, he had 6 defensive touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 3 off of fumble recoveries. He had 163 yards returning fumbles. That's pretty good.
He also threw a TD pass.
And he only missed 2 games in his whole career.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a starter up until 79. And then Bud kind of went with the youth movement, but Paul was still in there. Paul was still a starter.
Yeah. In his rookie season, he led the NFL with 12 interceptions, including 7 straight games. He was also so. I don't know. I just wonder if that's still a record.
Probably.
He was named his first of 8 Pro Bowls and was second only to teammate Charlie Taylor for NFL Rookie of the Year. We all know Charlie Taylor was a pretty darn good player.
Yeah,
himself.
It took Charlie Taylor a long time to get in the Hall of Fame. Also,
yeah,
it took him many years to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so he intercepted 28 passes in his first 4 seasons with the Redskins, and was traded to the Vikings in '68. So he played with Vikings till he retired in '79. During that time, he was one of 11 players to play from the 4 Super Bowls for the Vikings. He also referred. He was also referred to as he supposedly. He was the one that the safety is called center fielder.
Yeah.
That was invented by him being the center fielder for the Vikings at that time there, because he also played baseball. So
yeah, he was.
The term.
He did play baseball.
So that's where the term center fielder comes from when they're talking about a safety.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and he, like he said, he didn't have to make a lot of tackles. It wasn't his job.
Yeah, I wouldn't need to make a lot of tackles either.
Not with that front seven we had. He shouldn't have had to make tackles.
So he pretty much had an interception every year of his career except for 1978. He had at least it was 2 was the least amount he had in a season.
I'll tell you what, 78, he was splitting time with Phil Wise. He split time with Phil Wise at that free safety spot. Tommy Hannon had took over as strong safety because Jeff Wright has suffered a knee injury working out in the off season, which basically ended his career. But so Paul was splitting time with Phil Wise.
He had double-digit interceptions twice in his career. His rookie year in '64 and then '75 with Minnesota. Going back to that darn '75 team, which is considered the best Vikings team ever. We will have a show just on that team later. We have other stuff we're going to talk about, but we will have just a '75 team show later.
Yep.
So Paul Krause, he was the man.
Yeah, he was. You think, and it took him so long to get in too because he didn't win the Super Bowl. That had a lot to do with it. I mean, the guy had 81 interceptions. It took him 20 years to get into the damn Hall of Fame. It just makes it. You just kind of are wondering what are these people thinking.
Let's see. Let's see. Paul Krause was inducted Moss's rookie year.
98. I was at that game. It was
98.
The first game of the year against Tampa Bay. I was at that game. Yep, I was at that game. He got his ring. He was inducted into the Ring of Honor. So he was also promised, along with Carl Eller. This was when Red McCombs was owner. That after the last player wore their numbers, the numbers were going to be retired, and they never were. They were promised the numbers would be retired, and Red never did it. Well, Ziggy's not going to do it now. So,
well, I think between Paul Krause and Harrison Smith, 22 should never be worn again.
I thought it should not have been worn after Paul Krause. Luckily, Harrison Smith has
made the number proud.
He's did the number proud, but
yeah, unlike the guys who have worn 84 after Moss.
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But so Paul Krause was 1998. So I believe the next one would have been Gary in 2000.
Excuse me. Okay. Ron Yeri.
And he retired in 81.
Retired in actually 82. He spent his last year with the Rams. Ron Yeri, when he retired, came out with a scathing interview. He ripped Fran Tarkenton like there was no tomorrow. I mean, he said things about Tarkenton that I was just like, how the hell did you two get along? He never got along with Fran Tarkenton. So he kind of kept that vitriol up for a few years. And then when he got into the Hall of Fame, they talked to him and they kind of asked him, well, Sid Hartman asked him, are you going to have Fran Tarkenton induct you into the Hall of Fame? And Ron was like, Fran was our leader and he was our quarterback and he was great for the team that we had then. So he didn't say anything negative about Fran, so you thought he was over it, but no, he does not have a strong like for Fran Tarkenton. He's the most vocal of the former teammates, but
which is weird because he protected his blind side.
And a lot of that's got to do with Fran because, as he's put it, he said this in an interview. For years, offensive linemen usually, they do that back pedal and then engage, right?
Yeah.
Well, he would do that. But the problem with Fran was if you ever watch Fran when he dropped back to pass, Fran never took a straight drop back. Fran kind of rolled to the right. So what happened was when Fran came back in 72, they were getting a lot of sacks. They were all on Ron Yeri's side because Fran was rolling to the right. Well, in that time that Fran was rolling to the right, Yeri's backing up to engage. Well, then when Yeri backs up and engages, Fran's right behind him. So usually it resulted in a sack. Well, Yeri would get over to the sideline. You got John Michaels yelling at him, and you got Bud Grant yelling at him. And so Yeri said after that, I stopped engaging like that. I just engaged right at the snap of the ball because he didn't want to hear the BS from the coaches because he didn't protect Fran Tarkenton. And there was other things too, but when you think about, we drafted Ron. Ron was a number one draft pick overall in 68. He was a number one from USC.
Yeah.
He blocked for O.J. Simpson in college. And in the pros, he blocked for Chuck Foreman. Every day in practice, though, Ron Yeri lined up on Carl Eller. And as they say, iron sharpens iron or whatever it is that they say. So he's lining up every day in practice on Carl Eller. So that helps too. And he just developed into this. He was a perennial All-Pro. He was All-Pro for 5 straight years?
He was an All-Pro. He was a 16 6-time first team All Pro,
Okay.
71 to 76. And in 77, he was a second team All Pro.
Oh, he made second team. He made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, Pro Bowl,
Um,
7-time Pro Bowl, 71 to
Yep.
77. NFL's All Decade Team, Ring of Honor, of course.
Yep.
He was NFL champion. He only missed 5 games in his career, and 3 of those was because of military duty.
Yeah, and I think that was 69. I think in
Um,
1969 he missed most of those games.
Yeah, he missed his first 3 games in
Yep.
69. It says he won the right tackle job, but military duty forced him to miss the first 3 games
Yep.
On the Vikings offensive line in his second season, which was 69.
69. He was, and
Yeah.
Doug Davis started.
Right.
I've seen some of the old highlight reels, and I see Doug Davis out there. And yeah, so military couldn't fight that. I mean,
come on, man. He only missed 2 games with a broken ankle. I mean, come on.
yeah.
Nowadays, they break an ankle, they're out for the season.
Well, think about Jack Youngblood played the whole playoffs in 79 in the Super Bowl with a broken leg.
Yeah.
He had a broken leg. You know?
So he was actually inducted into the Vikings Hall of Fame Ring of Honor before he was inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame.
Right. Yeah, he was in our ring. He was put in our Ring of Honor right away. He was voted to the 25th anniversary team, the 40th anniversary team, 50th anniversary team. So yeah, he's when you think of right tackles, when you think of great offensive linemen, Ron Yeary's right up there.
And he was the only tackle taken first overall until Orlando Pace was selected in 1997. So from 68 to 1997, there was no other tackle taken first overall.
No, nope, no. Yeary was the last one before Pace.
So 207 games played, 180 games started. He had 2 fumble recoveries as well.
Right.
So, yeah, 68 to 81, he played for the Vikings, and 82, he played for the Rams.
Yeah, and we traded him to the Rams, I think, for a late draft pick. His contract was up anyway. But yeah, he was a California guy. So
well, he went to, I mean, he's from he's from Bellflower, California.
Yeah, and then I think now he lives in Cerritos, California, or something like that.
So I mean, he was back then he would have been considered huge. He was 6'5", 255.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah,
that's big.
So, yeah, and I'm sure he didn't allow. It doesn't say like how many sacks or how many pressures he allowed or any of that type of stuff, but I'm sure he didn't allow many.
With him,
I'm sure most of the time that Tarkenton got tackled behind the line of scrimmage, it was because of Tarkenton doing what he did.
And most of the sacks back then, because not only did we have Ron Yeary on that right side, but we had Ed White playing guard next to him, who was an All-Pro. The sacks usually came from the other side, which was Steve Riley and Chuck Goodrum. Yeah. So that was, but that's with that right side, when you go from Tingelhoff, White, and Yeary, was impenetrable. Those are all. That's also the side the Vikings ran off of with Chuck Foreman.
Yeah.
You know. So, but yeah, Yeary was a beast. He really was.
So he won. He won both the Outland Trophy and the Newt Rockne Award. That also goes to the college lineman.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first Trojan to win the Outland Trophy. And he also won a national championship under John McKay. He's a College Football Hall of Famer. He's also a Rose Bowl Hall of Famer. So, like I said, when the Vikings hit on a pick, usually from our last show, they're usually pretty good at first round picks from what we talked about. And he they've only had two first picks overall ever, and he was the second. So I would definitely say that was a success with his pick.
Yeah, and he also had a very good underrated offensive line coach in John Michaels. So that helped a lot too. Hey, Skull Mafia.
How you doing, Skull? Yeah. So I mean, so yeah, Ron Yeri. He, if you're a Vikings fan, and you don't know who Ron Yeri is, and you shouldn't be a Vikings fan.
Number 73, can't miss him. Can't
Yep.
miss him. He's a big guy even back then. Um,
Yeah.
he was a big guy. He looked like when you think of linemen in the 70s, just the stature and how this what they look like, Ron Yeri is right there, especially
Yeah.
at the tackles.
So this next guy, he only played one season with the Vikings. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He did a play that he was involved in did change the rules in the NFL. He's the reason why if the ball goes out of the end zone, it's a touchback, Mr. Dave Casper.
Yep, goes to the post.
Yeah,
Goes to the
yeah,
post.
goes to the post and
Yeah,
then the holy roller.
his
Yeah,
best years were with the Raiders. He was a Raider.
yeah.
Um,
He's definitely more known as a Raider than a Viking,
definitely
but
more known as a Raider. He did score a touchdown on the Vikings in the Super Bowl, but he was from Bemidji, Minnesota. He was a Minnesota guy. Um, during the 70, I believe it was the 79 Pro Bowl, when the Vikings staff coached the NFC, Dave Casper had actually talked to Bud Grant about coming to Minnesota. And this was in 79. He ended up being sent to the Houston Oilers in 80.
yes,
And so he was with the Oilers. He was part of the Archie Manning trade that the Vikings made in 83. We got Manning and Casper for, I believe, draft choices. And Casper started at tight end because we didn't have a tight end that year. It was supposed to be Joe Sensor, who had a bad knee. Bob Brewer was hurt. And Steve Jordan was basically a rookie. It was his second year. He was drafted in 82, but before he became the All Pro that he is. So Casper was the starter. Um, played well for us. He wore number 44 as a tight end, folks. He wore number 44 with the Vikings. So trivia question there,
yeah.
trivia answer there for you.
So 74 to 80, he was with the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
80 to 83, he was with the Oilers.
Mm-hmm.
83 for Minnesota, 84 for back with the Raiders.
Yeah, he went back to the Raiders.
He was actually played for the Oakland Raiders and then the Los Angeles
Yeah.
Raiders.
Now, the reason he didn't stay a Viking was because Les Steckel wanted to move him to offensive tackle. I believe it's either offensive tackle or offensive guard. And he didn't, he wanted to move him into the offensive line. And Casper's like, screw you, I'm not doing that. Trade me. And we traded him to the Raiders. So
Yeah, and yeah, it says the third week of the 83 season, him and Archie Manning were traded to the Vikings. In
yep.
84, he returned to the Raiders and won the Super Bowl, who won the Super Bowl the year before for his final NFL season. So he had 378 receptions, 5,200 yards, and 52 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah, he had no touchdowns with the Vikings. I think he may have only had 13 catches with the Vikings, 13 or 14. He didn't get the ball a lot. That was the year that Kramer got hurt, and it was Steve Dills at quarterback too. So
Yeah, for some reason they don't have his. They usually have a stat line for his years breakdowns, but they don't have one for Casper on here.
if you're on Wikipedia, they do that.
What's on Wikipedia? He's missing it.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah, let me see. Oakland Raiders. Yeah, they pretty much don't have anything for the Vikings on here. Let me see. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, they usually have the stat line, but they don't have it on for him for some reason for him.
That's
Yeah,
because it's Wikipedia. You have to put it in.
yeah. But he was a Super Bowl champion against us, 32 to 14. He was in that Super Bowl. He scored the first touchdown of the game. Four-time first team All-American, 76 to 79, five-time Pro Bowler, all-decade team in the 70s. So it wasn't one of the greatest tight ends ever, but he's solid.
Yeah, he was very solid. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he did move back. I think he's living in Bemidji still. I think.
Yeah. Well, like we said, T-Bass, if they're in the Hall of Fame, even if they played one game or one season for the Vikings, we're going to talk about them because they are a Hall of Famer. So that's before my
Yeah,
yeah.
They did spend some time in purple.
Yeah.
You know, they did.
Yeah. So I mean, so like I say, we're talking about. I think the next guy is 2004. So let me double check.
And that's probably Carl Eller.
Yes, Carl Eller is the next 2004.
Yep. It's which is funny that final selection. Not only was Carl Eller a part of it, but Jim Marshall was a part of it. So you had the bookends that were finalists for the Hall of Fame that year, and they went with Eller instead of Marshall. Eller got in, Marshall
But
didn't.
you think Marshall's better, right?
Eller's bigger and meaner. Marshall's
Yeah.
quicker. Marshall's quicker. He was quicker off the ball than Carl. Carl for that era was actually very strong. Very strong. He didn't look it, but just the man was just strong.
Well,
And
he's 6'6", so
he's 6'6" and maybe 250.
247 is what they say here.
Yeah, and 250. I mean, that's being generous, but Jim off the edge was probably one of the quickest defensive ends off the edge in the NFL at that time. But unfortunately, this is what a lot of, and I tell this to people all the time, and I got this from Bob Lurtzum and a couple other people. The biggest reason Jim's not in the Hall of Fame is because he was overshadowed by Page and Eller. To the outside media, when you think of the Viking defense, the first ones that come to mind are Page and Eller. Viking fans, we say all of them, including Marshall. But that's us as Viking fans. But to the national media, and Marshall was overshadowed. And he did have the longest games played streak, which was, broken by.
I think it's more impressive than what Favre did because Favre was a quarterback.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. And so, I think he still has a record for most opponents' recoveries in a career, 29. I think he still has that record.
Let's see, he has 23 fumble recoveries.
23?
Yeah, fumble recoveries 23. Let me see, I'm trying to see.
Is that Carl or is that Jim?
Oh, sorry, that's Carl.
Okay,
Carl Eller had 23 himself.
Yeah, Eller had 23. Eller is also the team sack leader with all-time sacks.
If you go back,
right? But the Vikings do acknowledge him as the all-time sack leader with 130, and right behind him is Jim Marshall with 127.5.
Yeah.
So, and Carl is a Minnesota guy. He went to the University of Minnesota. Only reason he left here was because he wanted to go somewhere else.
Well, but he was also drafted by the Bills in the AFL.
Yeah, the Bills drafted him, but he signed with the Vikings. Bobby Bell tried to get him to sign in the AFL, but he signed with the hometown team. But and the reason he ended up in Seattle was the year before Carl held out and said if he was going to be traded, he wanted to go somewhere. One of the teams was Seattle with Jack Patera. That's where he went. We traded Carl Eller for Steve Niehaus, and both were out of football.
Yeah, an 8th round pick. So they got an 8th round pick and Niehaus.
Yeah, and I think the 8th round pick that year was probably, correct me if I'm wrong, it might have been Doug Pascal, who was a running back. He spent a year with us, and then he tore up his knee, never played again. But yeah, Carl's definitely a Hall of Famer.
That's insulting for the Vikings to only get an 8th round pick for him.
Well, Carl's production dropped off dramatically. It dropped off big time. And Carl admitted that he had a substance abuse problem.
Yeah, he was in 2006 for driving under the influence.
Yeah, he had a substance
He's a counselor now, I guess.
Yep. He had a substance abuse problem back in the day. He brought it up. He was the first one to talk about it, that he did cocaine. But yeah, he's very deserving. And Marshall should be in there too. If Marshall doesn't get in there now, I hate to say it, it'll be a posthumously thing for Jim. He's getting older. He's 85.
Yeah.
You know, he's come up for it. He still comes up for it. How he doesn't get in as a on the seniors thing is beyond me.
I thought for sure he'd get in this
I
year.
thought he'd for sure get into the seniors, and he didn't. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, what the hell are these guys doing?
So it says right here, Eller is credited as the Vikings all-time sack leader with 130 and a half. He also had 3 sacks with the Seahawks, so he has 133 and a half in his career. He set a career high with 15 sacks in 69 and matched that in 77. He also amassed 7 seasons with 10 or more sacks.
Yeah, and the problem with that is when they counted up the sacks, which the NFL didn't make an official stat until '82.
Yeah.
They also included the postseason, which up until Dolman had his 21, the record was 19 and a half by Alan Page, but they also counted Alan Page's postseason sacks too. So I don't even know. That was 76. I don't remember what he got in the regular season, but he played his ass off in the regular season.
Yeah, he's NFL champion, NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 71, 5-time first team All-Pro 68 to 71, then again in 73. Second team All-Pro 67 and 72, 6-time Pro Bowler 68 to 71, 73, 74. NFL sack co-leader 69. 1970 All-Decade Team, of course, Vikings Ring of Honor, 50th greatest Vikings, 25th anniversary, 40th anniversary. Yeah, so he had 2 safeties, 1 interception, 23 fumble recoveries, and one defensive touchdown.
Okay.
So, yeah,
which is okay. That defensive touchdown he had was in 64 against the Niners. That was the same game that Jim Marshall ran the wrong way. In the same game. Jim Marshall ran the wrong way in that game. That's the game where Eller got his touchdown.
And Jim Marshall was so fast, no other teammate could catch him and tackle him.
Well, that's what they said. They asked Mick Tingelhoff, why didn't anybody come off the bench and hit him? And Mick said, you couldn't catch him. He was the fastest guy on the team. You couldn't catch him. He was already, and but yeah, that's the game. Eller goes the right way and Jim goes the wrong way. So
yeah, that's kind of I'm flustered because Jim Marshall, he should be in. I mean, he was just as good.
To me, the Hall of Fame is a joke until he gets in there.
Yeah, he was just as good as Carl Eller. There's no reason for Eller to be in and not Marshall. It makes no sense.
It's like but now you've got voters now that are younger than us.
Yeah.
So they're going by analytics. They're going by Pro Football Focus. They never saw these guys play. And that's what sucks. But then the ones that did see Jim play didn't think he was worthy of getting in there. And you kind of want to look at him like, what the hell are you thinking? Yeah. Why isn't he worthy? You got some guys in the Hall of Fame right now that they're real head scratchers. And I'm like, and like, if you're going to put so-and-so in there, you need to put Marshall in there. If you're going to put so-and-so in there, you need to put Chuck Foreman in there. If you're going to put so-and-so in there, you need to put Bobby Bryant in there.
Yeah.
It's like you can't. There is a bias.
Well, Matt Blair is better than some of the linebackers that are in the Hall of Fame.
Oh my God. Exactly. And with all the Pro Bowls and the All Pros that Matt Blair accomplished and the block kicks and everything else.
Yeah.
And there you've got this joker who played in 1 Super Bowl, didn't do crap his whole career. It's like, give me a break. Just give me a break.
I know we're not complaining like guys like Singletary and guys like that. No, we totally get that.
No, there's some guys in there though that do not belong in there.
Yeah, but you got like these guys who played for the Cowboys. They went to 1 Super Bowl, even though they really didn't do nothing in that Super Bowl. They're in the Hall of Fame because they played for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Or they played for the 49ers. Or they played for, they played for the Steelers. The Steelers have a lot of guys who should not be in the Hall of Fame, but they're in the Hall of Fame because they played for the Steelers.
Yeah. Yeah, and let Fran tell it, they were all on steroids.
Yeah.
And Franz wouldn't be the only one to say it, but it could be true because a lot of those guys are no longer with us and they died at young ages.
Yeah.
They passed away at young ages. So, who's to say?
So this guy, he only played 3 years for Minnesota, but some people have him as a top 5 Viking quarterback. Um, I wouldn't put him in the top 5, but some people have him there. That'd be Warren Moon.
I have him in the top 5.
Yeah.
I have him in the top 5 because he's Warren Moon. Warren,
And we all know the reason why he wasn't in the NFL to start his career.
right. He started in Winnipeg, but he was a winner in Winnipeg. I mean, not
Yes.
Winnipeg, Edmonton. Edmonton won like 5 straight Grey Cups with him as quarterback, didn't they?
Let's see right now. He Edmonton Eskimos. Yeah, he led the Eskimos to a record 5 consecutive Grey Cups: 78, 79, 80, 81, and 82.
Yeah. Yeah. And he came to the NFL in 84.
He became the first professional quarterback to pass for 5,000 yards in a season.
Yep. Yep. I
And
mean, and it took him that long to get to the NFL, and he gets here, and then we get him. And when the Vikings made the trade for him, that was because one of the reasons was because Denny had kind of went in on trying to sign Scott Mitchell. He wanted Scott Mitchell as the next Viking quarterback for the 94 season. Well, what happened was Mitchell signed with the Lions.
yeah.
So Denny made the move, and they traded for Warren Moon because Warren Moon wanted out of Houston.
Right. And the reason he got a shot in the NFL was because his Canadian Football League coach was the head coach of the Oilers at the time.
Yeah.
And as soon as they won the bidding war for Warren Moon, he retired. He's like, I got my guy. I did what I wanted to do.
I mean, and Warren's best numbers were before he got to Minnesota, but he still put up good numbers in Minnesota.
Yeah. He
know,
had 3 good with Minnesota.
Yeah, he got hurt in '96, which kind of led to his leaving Minnesota.
Yes.
That kind of worked in Brad Johnson, and then I think he went to Seattle and Kansas City afterwards.
2 years for Seattle, then 2 years for Kansas City, but he really didn't play for Kansas City at all.
Yeah, he didn't really play for Kansas City at all. Yeah. So that was and when we got him, he was already what, 30, 36, 35?
Yeah, he was.
He was up there.
So we got him in '94, and he was. He was born in. Let me get to the top of the page here. He was born in '56. So yeah.
He was 38.
Yes, he was 38 when we got him.
Wow.
So his 3 years with Minnesota, the Vikings went 9-6, 8-8, and then he played 15 games in '94. They went 9-6. Then he went 8-8 in '95, and he played 8 games in '96 before he got hurt. And they were 4-4. 4,000. He threw for 4,000 yards his first 2 years. He threw for 1,600 yards in 8 games.
Yeah.
He had 33 touchdowns in '95 with 14 interceptions.
Yeah. And he was he was throwing to Moss and Carter. Not Moss and Carter. He was throwing not Carter.
Yeah, '95 would have been Carter and Reed.
Yeah, he never got to work with Randy Moss. He never got to play with Randy Moss. But he did have Carter and he did have Jake Reed.
He went 1-1 in the postseason game. Well, he with the Vikings, he 1, 2.
He lost
3
he
and
lost
7.
Yeah, he didn't win any postseason games with the Vikings.
No, he only won 3 with Houston.
Yeah. Well, and then he was part of that
greatest
big
comeback.
one, the greatest comeback.
Yeah.
So he I mean, he had good years with the Vikings.
He still pretty much holds almost every passing record for the Houston Oilers / Tennessee Titans network franchise.
Yeah, doesn't that tell you something?
Most passing, most completions, most completions in a career, most completions in a season. He had 404 completions in one season for the Oilers.
What year was
Most
that?
completions in a game, 41. It was 91.
Okay.
That was a run and shoot, I believe.
Yeah, those running.
Most completions in a playoff career, 230. Most completions in a playoff game, 36. Most completions is rookie season. Most passing attempt. It's just ridiculous how long this list is.
Yeah.
He was also the most
he
sacked.
did all those NFL records when he was 30 some odd years old.
Yeah, he was a 9-time Pro Bowler, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 97. All Pro selection 1990, 5-time Grey Cup champion, 1990 NFL MVP, 1999 Offensive Player of the Year, the UPI Player of the Year, 1989 Man of the Year, Pro Bowl MVP, Grey Cup MVP twice, CFL Most Outstanding Player. So he's definitely his number is Tennessee Titans number 1 is retired, which is which makes sense,
Right.
But I think University of Washington has his number retired as well. But
I
I
remember
understand why
him.
the Vikings wouldn't retire his number because he only played 3 seasons. But when you look at his 3 seasons, there's Vikings players who played for the Vikings for 6-7 years who don't even have anywhere near those stats.
I know.
So he's definitely. I know he only played 3 years for Minnesota, but you can see why some people have him in the top 5.
He's in my top 5. I'm just
which
honest.
is an indictment on the Vikings quarterback history
Since Tarkenton, yeah.
Yeah. What up, Dave?
But the Vikings were still able to win even with the rotating quarterback carousel, especially Denny Green.
Yeah.
He still won. So I think if the situation were the same today, if they could win, it'd be a different story than what we've been saying with the narrative with the current team. But the fact that they've been mediocre to not good, so there's going to be that changes the narrative.
When you look at his college career, it says right here, despite his college success, Boone was led to believe that he would only be a late round draft pick, and we all know the reason why.
Well, if they were going to move him to safety,
he
was going to get the Tony Dungy treatment because Dungy was moved to safety. They said he couldn't play quarterback, so they moved him to safety. But he was going to get that or wide receiver.
Yeah, he said he thought his opportunity would be limited in the NFL. So 6 weeks before the NFL draft, Moon signed with the Eskimos, where him and Tom Wilkinson shared signal calling duties. And then I guess he got the job. He took him to 5 straight Grey Cups.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that was. I mean, and that was just that old school thinking of how things were done back then.
Yeah, just think about a quarterback of Moon's. This is tell you for all you people. This tells you how much money has changed in the NFL. Moon signed a 5-year, $10 million contract in 1989.
Which was
That's
big
$2
money
million
back
a
then.
year for a quarterback of his quality,
Yeah,
and he was the highest paid player.
Yep. Which was a lot of money back then. A lot of money.
So that just tells you how much money, how much the NFL has grown since then.
Or how much these owners are throwing away money on bad players.
Oh, that's true, including Davenport.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So Warren Moon was 06. So the next, let's see, I think there's a jump up here. So there's a jump up to 2 years for, even though this guy had, he was good for both teams he played for. He did end up winning 2 Super Bowls after he left Minnesota. So that'd be Gary Zimmerman.
Yeah, and I think he went in as a Bronco.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that is a team.
Yeah, he went in as a Bronco.
Even though he played longer as a Viking.
Yeah, he had a falling out with Denny Green. And so he was going to hold out anyway. So he was traded. We traded him to Denver. But yeah, he went in as a Bronco. When he was on that side of the line with Randall McDaniel, they were the best.
Yeah.
You know, him at left tackle, Randall McDaniel left guard. They were good. You know, came from the USFL. We gave up
The LA Express.
the LA Express, and he was blocking for Steve Young.
Yes.
And then we got him in '86. I forget what we gave up.
Yeah, they
for
played
him.
18 games in the USFL.
Yeah, they played. Canada plays 18 games. Yeah, the NFL's going 18 games. We just don't know when. The owners won 18. If it's up to the owners, they get rid of preseason altogether, which I think is a mistake. But,
So
but
when
yeah.
the USFL folded in '86, Zimmerman joined the Vikings after they obtained his rights from the Giants.
Yep.
Who drafted him in the '84 NFL supplemental draft for CFL players.
Yep. The rest is history. And he actually never missed a game all the time he was here.
And it said during his NFL career, he was famous for his refusal to interact with the media. This disdain for the sports press came about due to an early incident in his NFL career after comments made by Zimmerman considering the Vikings offensive players for a loss were made public by the media. Zimmerman claimed that his teammates ostracized him for speaking ill of the teammates' performance. This led Zimmerman to decide to boycott the sports media as a result, refusing to do interviews or engage in any sort of interaction with them for the rest of his career.
Oh, he called out his players in the press. He called out his teammates.
I think he probably said it off the record, but the reporter put it out anyway. After his comments made by Zimmer, considering the Vikings offensive player, condemning the Vikings offensive players for a loss were made public by the media. So I'm assuming he was saying it off the record and the reporter made it public.
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Not at all. They were known to, some of the reporters up here were known to do some shady crap like that.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you don't do that as a reporter. You lose the trust of the person you're talking to.
They'll never do it now. Matter of fact, they'll do cartwheels trying to make sure it's all positivity. But back then.
But he was 84 to 85 with the Express, 86 to 92 with the Vikings, 93 to 97 with the Broncos, 3-time first team All-Pro, 2-time second All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, 1980s and 1990s All-Decade team, 50 greatest Viking, Broncos Ring of Honor. So he was also he was on the USFL all-time team, and he was a USFL all-star for me in both years he played.
Yeah.
So so I mean Zimmerman. I remember I was happy for him going to. I'm glad he won with the Broncos.
Yeah, he was one of the few guys I was like happy to see win a Super Bowl. And plus, here's the thing about that: he wasn't even going to play that year when the agent told him that he had a contract and everything. Gary was in Sturgis at the biker rally, so he didn't even know. And so when he came back from Sturgis, he joined the Broncos for his last year of football. But that's how he found it. He was in Sturgis.
Yeah. See, 93 offensive that made Zimmerman became the de facto leader of the Broncos on the offensive line when he was on the field.
They had that offensive line had 2 ex-Vikings. They had Zimmerman. They also had Brian Habib.
Yeah, Brian Habib. Yes, I remember that dude. Yes.
Yeah, they had Brian Habib. So, and their job was to protect Elway. But they also had Terrell Davis running the ball. Yeah.
So he became the long-running. He actually started the Broncos offensive lineman tradition of not talking to the media, even to full decade after he retired. In 2007, the NFL created the Denver Broncos O-line rule, requiring all players to talk to the media.
Yeah, see, that's just
Well, that's the whole Marshawn Lynch. I'm here so I don't get fined.
it's basically. Sometimes you don't. And here's the thing: there are times where, as a player, the last thing you want to do, especially after a hard fought game, if it's a
Yes.
really tough game, and if it's an emotional game and it's a loss, the last thing you want to do is talk to the damn press. The press needs to respect that. Really, Nug,
Sorry.
really, Nug,
Northeast. What up,
really,
Northeast?
Nug, go Lions, really, Jesus.
Hey, like I said, winning the division championship once every 30 years is a good goal to have.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
and back with the press, I mean, there's the NFL now. They want everything accessible to the press. I'm going to be honest with you. If I just got done playing, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to look at you.
Especially nowadays when as they're walking off the field, they shove a mic in their face.
Oh, during the game, they're interviewing the coaches. Really?
Yeah.
That is, to me, that's very college. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You just
It
don't
is.
do that in the pros.
Well, shoot, during the Major League Baseball playoffs, they're interviewing players in the dugout.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
I mean, it's a playoff game.
It's a
I know
playoff
baseball, you don't
game.
need to concentrate as much you do in baseball and you do in football, but come on.
And that's the thing where now they're so like entertainment driven. It's just kind of like, there's a game going on here. Can they focus on the game instead of you sticking a camera in their throat, in their face? It's like, be real. Come on.
Well, Nug, that's why we're not too upset about the Lions having a good season. If it was anybody else, Bears or Packers, we would, but
Yeah, what are the Lions? Once every 30 years?
yeah.
Yeah, next
The
time
Lions have just as bad history as Minnesota does, so we're kind of like in it together. So
next time the Lions become relevant, we'll all be dead. So,
so let's see here. All right, so that was got me fired up there. Let's see. So that was Zimmerman in 2008. So looks like there was a couple years. Let's see, 2008, and then actually it was 1 year. This guy, he's also another guy. When you think of the Vikings, this is a guy that comes to mind from Arizona State. Probably, in my opinion, he's the best guard I have ever seen play football.
Randall McDaniel,
and he had that weird stance. Northeast.
Northeast. I agree.
Did he have that weird stance because he got hurt?
No, that was just a stance.
That was just a stance. Okay.
Yeah, they tried to, and here's the thing. They wanted to change it so much. I mean, every coach tried to change it, but it's like you change it and it changed how he blocked.
Yeah.
So you just let them go. I mean, they've done it so much. It's like, stop trying to reinvent the wheel. If it works for them, it may be unconventional, but let them play. Put it this way. That stance in today's NFL would have got him cut by some teams.
Yeah.
It would have got him cut because they would have ripped on his stance. But yeah, I mean, never missed a game.
He's also a hell of an athlete.
He ended up starting the second game of the year. He took the job from Dave Huffman, RIP, and never gave it up. He didn't give it up until he signed with Tampa Bay in 2000?
2000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he didn't give it up. He didn't give up until he signed with Tampa. I think he made the all-decade team.
Yeah, he 7-time first team All-American, first All-Pro, all for 80. So 90, 92 to 96, then 1998. Second team All-Pro the years that he didn't make first team. 12-time Pro Bowler, 1989 to 2000 straight.
Yeah.
All 90s decade team, 100 NFL All-Team, Rookie of the Year, Ring of Honor for the Vikings, of course. So yeah, but he ran the 100 meters in 10.64 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
He 40-yard dash in 4.6. I mean, that's faster than some tight ends.
Yeah.
And this is at 6'3", 258 people, 268.
Yeah, and when we drafted him in '88, we drafted him and his teammate Todd Kalis. So
Yes.
we literally had Randall McDaniel at left guard, and Todd Kalis was a starter at right guard.
Yeah.
But I mean, the guy was just an athlete. He's one of those once in a lifetime athletes. He came in and took over. You know, he came in. Matter of fact, Keith Millard says the greatest guard he ever went up against was Randall McDaniel, and that's in practice. He never played against him on an opposite team. It was all in practice. He said Randall McDaniel was the best guard he ever faced, and that's just from lining up on him every day in practice for the years that he was with the Vikings. Keith Millard said that.
Yeah.
You know, so that right there tells you everything you need to. I mean, like somebody asked me to put together my all-time Viking offensive line. I said Zimmerman at left guard, at left tackle, Randall McDaniel left guard, Tingelhoff is my center, Ed White is my right guard, Ron Yeary is my right tackle.
Yeah,
you could put any quarterback behind that line, and they'd be fine. They would be fine. But yeah, he did. I mean, the guy was he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal. I can't hear you. Your mic went out.
That's weird.
Okay, I hear you now.
Yeah, that's weird. It said it was unmuted, but I muted myself and unmuted myself again. But yeah, he was drafted in the first round in '88.
Yep.
He started every Vikings regular season game from 1990 to 1999, as well as 11 consecutive Pro Bowls. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most versatile offensive linemen to ever play the game. He started 12 Pro Bowls because he had that one with the Broncos.
Yeah.
And then he also started 202 consecutive games in his career.
Yeah, he spent 2 seasons with the Buccaneers.
Right, and he would play fullback in goal line situations. He was released on February 10th, 2000 as a salary cap move. Then he signed with the Buccaneers.
Him and Jeff Christie.
Yeah.
Both. And they both went to Tampa Bay.
Yep. And then he scored. He's the oldest player to score a touchdown at 36 years old, at 282 days old.
Yep.
So he's definitely probably in my lifetime, if he's not he's probably one of the, not just the Vikings.
I've got him right up there with Ed White and John Hanna from the Patriots. He's right up there. If I'm missing a couple of players, I'm sorry. It's seen a lot of football over the years.
Yeah. He's also he has a nephew who plays for the Minnesota Wild, Dakota Memis.
Oh, he's got a nephew, huh? Yeah, I think Randall still lives in Minnesota. Still lives.
Yeah, he's in the public school system still.
Oh, he's a teacher. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, yeah, Norpheus. I totally agree.
Oh, thanks, Norpheus. Yeah, we're original. We're not talking about the current state of the team.
His number 64 should be retired as well.
Yeah. Yeah, who's wearing 64 now? Anybody?
Brandel.
Brandel.
Yeah,
it's Brandel.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know you can't retire everybody's number. I get that, but there are certain players like 64 and 84 should definitely be retired. Those two definitely. We could talk about 22, whatever, but 84 and 64 should definitely be retired.
84 for sure.
Yeah.
And I'd also put in there 81 and 22.
Well, 81 would be
for Carl Eller
and Anthony Carter.
Yeah, but mostly for Carl Eller.
Mostly, mostly. But
the last person to give 81 any kind of credibility was probably Chris Walsh.
Yeah.
Or Nate Burleson. I take that back. Nate Burleson. He wore 81.
I mean, I think Chris Walsh should be in the Vikings Ring of Honor for being the best special teamer.
They don't give that award.
They don't
to
do that.
Teamers.
Yeah, I know.
You know, no.
So Randall Downing was 2009. So the next guy And the only reason he made the team was because he put a heavy chain around his waist when he weighed in. Probably one of the greatest undrafted free agents ever. From was it Texas A&M Kingsville? I think he's where he went to.
Texas
Texas A&I.
A&I,
Yeah,
John Randall.
John Randall.
John Randall, who I think his brother played in the NFL. His brother Irvin played with Tampa Bay, and he was a linebacker.
Yeah.
I want to say they wanted to move John Randall to like a linebacker position. We had him at defensive end. When he came to the Vikings, we had him at defensive end. He played 2 years at defensive end with the Vikings, and when Denny Green came in, Denny Green moved him inside after Keith Millard got traded. And then he moved John Randall into the kind of like the under tackle position, which is where he became a Pro Bowler. What can be said about John? One of the greatest undrafted players the Vikings have ever had. Him and Mick Tingelhoff, both undrafted, both in the Hall of Fame. So that tells you something right there.
He replaced Henry Thomas.
Actually, he replaced Millard.
Uh,
He played next to Henry Thomas. He replaced Millard because there was a time there where him and Hank Thomas were kind of like that power duel of defensive tackles in the league. And he took over from Millard, and he made six straight Pro Bowls.
7-time Pro Bowler, 93 to 98, and then 2001.
Yeah, and in 2001 he was with Seattle.
Yeah.
Yep. So he made like 6 straight with the Vikings.
He
Double digit sacks every year except for 2000. From 92 to 99, he had double digit sacks.
Yeah. His first 3 years, his first year he had 1 sack. He had 10.5 in 91. And then in 92, he had 11.5,
11.5,
12.5, then 13.5, 10.5, 11.5, 15.5, 10.5, then 10.
Yep.
And then 2000, he went down to 8. And then 2001, he went back up to 11 with Seattle.
Well, and see, towards the end of his career with the Vikings, Denny Green moved him to defensive end. He was playing defensive end his last year or 2 with the Vikings. Matter of fact, in 98, he played mostly defensive end.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was playing mostly defensive end. The guy was a beast. I mean, who else can sit there at the line of scrimmage and jaw jack with the offensive line and tell them everything about their life because they read it in the media guide?
Yeah.
Offensive linemen were like, this guy's talking about things that nobody knows about except maybe my wife and kids, and he's yelling it at me from the other side of the line. And he played a psychological game and won a lot of them.
And Brett Favre said that he was the toughest guy that he ever played against, and on artificial turf, he was unblockable.
Oh yeah, Brett said the only Viking he was ever scared of was John Randall. Steve Young even said, it's like, my God, they were in a game. It's like, does this guy ever like settle down? Hank Thomas looked at him and said, no.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, I mean, he was, and unfortunately, what happened with, and this is where I kind of get on Denny. Denny let the defense go to hell.
Well, he was an offensive guy.
He was an offensive guy. He let the defense go to hell. And the only guy that he had a constant pass rusher was Randall, which was unfair to Randall because guess what? Now they could double team him and triple team him. And he was still getting to the quarterback. So, the guy was strong enough to beat off the double teams, which they kind of moved him to defensive end, which kind of helped helped him get to the quarterback. But yeah, it's just they let the poor guy just kind of out there, and they didn't really help him. They didn't get no help for him. But
yeah, the only defensive tackle in NFL history that has more sacks than John Randall is Alan Page.
Yep. Yep. And we don't really know how many Allen's got because
Well, he's credited with 141, but who knows how
yeah,
many.
and we don't. I mean, the NFL doesn't even recognize him. What's John got?
137 and a half, I think, is what it. Yeah. So John Randall has 137 and a half, and
Okay.
Alan Page is 148 and a half.
Okay. Now keep in mind they got a lot of those sacks now. John got quite a few sacks away from the Vikings.
He had 8, so 11, 18, and then so he had 25 and a half with the Seahawks.
Yeah, and they moved him back to defensive tackle. But yeah,
He had 9. He only played 9 games in 2003, and he had 5.5 sacks.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, the guy had a nonstop motor. I always think what the Vikings defensive line could have been with John Randall and Warren Sapp together. I always think about that.
I think the Bucks put that out there.
Oh, about the
Yes.
weed?
Yeah.
I think they could have. Because we sure took Derek Alexander in a hurry, and I'm just like, why? And then Alexander holds out,
which is weird because Dennis Green was known for taking chances on players who, who had issues.
Yeah, and he didn't take one with him. If you had put John Randall with Warren Sapp together, you wouldn't have missed a beat with
they would have went undefeated in 90.
Yeah, with Hank Thomas. I mean, it would have been like just like we talk about like
Chris Dolman on the end.
Yeah, I mean, well, Dolman was gone, but
this was
they got 95.
Oh yeah, sorry.
95, and then they would have had you would have had to find a deep. But was
Noga on the team then?
Yeah, Noga was gone. You had Roy Barker. Barker and Harris. You had Barker and Harris, James Harris. So just having that inside push would have been a lot.
They tell you that even Tom Brady will tell you. Yeah, you're right, Norpheus. Pressure up the middle is the worst. Yeah, they can move out of the way from the left or the right. They can step up into the pocket, but if that pressure is coming,
if it's coming in your face, it's hard to move around. And it's just coaches just don't get it. But
especially our coaching staff this year. But that's for a different time.
That's for a different topic.
That's different show.
Yeah,
we're talking good stuff on this show. This is a good one. Yeah, John Randall. I remember the iconic commercial with him chasing the chicken dressed up with the Brett Favre jersey, and then at the end of the commercial, he's eating the chicken. Of course, that commercial was taken off the air because the PETA people.
Oh God, PETA had a fit. Well, there was 2 commercials PETA had a fit with. The one was John Randall, but you might remember this one. When Fox got the NFL rights, they used to do these commercials to let the people know that the NFL was on their channel. Remember, they had long snapper Mike Morris, and he would things he would do around the house he would long snap the dishes, long snap remember when they said it was time to put the cat out, he long snapped the cat, and they yanked that commercial as quick as they could. And he even put a disclaimer out there that the cat was not hurt in the taping. But PETA had a fit. They had a damn fit.
That's like one of the best commercials ever.
Oh God, yeah.
And Brett Favre thought it was funny.
Yeah, Favre thought it was funny.
And he's like, that was a funny commercial.
Now remember, also John is a part of football immortality, as they say, as a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Whenever they bring up Trent Dilfer started that fight with Randall. Remember, he tried to go all WWE on him, and he got kicked out of the game. I remember when it happened. I was like, what the hell are you? You're a quarterback, dude. Don't do that.
Especially with John Randall. I mean,
what the hell? John was even like, I don't know what I did. I'm just laying there, and he starts stomping. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's like, and to make matters worse, anybody tells you do not start a fight on the opposing team's sideline, which is exactly, and he did it in front of Denny Green and the coaches. So it was kind of like, Dilfer, what the hell is wrong with you? But it's Trent Dilfer. So, but
Yeah.
start a fight with John Randall, not smart.
Yeah, I don't know why you would do that. Especially seeing how he is what he, the guy has a motor never stops.
Yeah.
He's also famous for his sayings, 6 feet for life.
Yeah.
Big Matt was it big dogs or mad dogs are in the house?
Big dogs in the house.
Yeah. So even though he was
just he could talk.
Oh yeah.
He could talk.
He'd be in the Hall of Fame for talker.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he could talk. Yeah, he would literally get under a player's skin, literally.
Yeah, I mean, he's awesome. He was also probably somebody else who brought a lot of people to Minnesota as well.
Yeah.
There's still people. I talk to every time I see a Vikings fan here today. I ask, I see them. Oh, you're a Viking fan. They're like, you know how it is, and they're like, then you get on the conversation how you become a Vikings fan. I know 3 people here in Texas who are a Vikings fan because of John Randall.
Oh yeah.
So,
and plus he was he's a Texas guy too.
Javelinas, I think he's
Abilene.
Yeah. So
yeah, Abilene. So yeah, he's a Texas guy. Yeah, undrafted. He was like that underdog story.
Oh yeah, because the story that I was talking about earlier. If you watch his, as T-Bass brought up his
football life.
Football life. They told him that we'll sign you if you come back weighing 250. Well, he weighed 244, so he put a chain around his waist when he weighed in. He weighed exactly 250.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
could you imagine him not playing for Vikings because he weighed like 248 as opposed to 250?
That is a Viking thing, though.
Don't look at the talent; just look at the size.
Yeah.
I don't. If
it would be now, but back then,
yeah. But I think he was also brought in by that one scout that was really good for Minnesota. What's his name? Dietrich or
Deitch?
Deitch, I think.
Deitch?
Yeah.
I know which one you're talking about.
He's gotten some good players from Minnesota.
Yeah. That's when we had a scouting unit. I don't know what we got now. The scout thing hasn't been the same since Scott Studwell left. It's been a lot of misses. A lot of misses. So,
but yeah, Scott Studwell, he was with Minnesota forever.
Yeah,
I don't think he's in the Ring of Honor either, is he?
Yeah, I think he is. Don't count me. Don't. But I think he is. He's the all-time tackle leader.
He should be.
Why not?
He should be in the Vikings all-time Ring of Honor.
Yeah, he should be. That Ring of Honor is kind of a joke anyway.
So I'm looking at the Ring of Honor right now, and he is on there.
Yeah.
2011.
Yep, I figured he'd be on there.
Yeah. So a lot of these players on this Hall of Fame list, like even guys like Gary Zimmerman, they played. Even though he's probably went in as a Bronco, maybe more people know him as a Bronco because he won a Super Bowl. He still played most of his years.
A lot of them did. Yeah. Gary's probably the exception that he went over there and he kind of the years balanced out.
Yeah.
But he got the ring over there.
Yeah.
And here he played an 87 championship game. So, but yeah, most of the guys are remembered as they spent some time with the Vikings, but they're remembered with other teams. Who was that? Who was after Randall?
He retired in 1999, but he wasn't into the Hall of Fame until 2012. And unfortunately, he is no longer with us. Dolman.
Oh, yeah, Chris Dolman. Originally drafted as a linebacker, went to Pitt. He started as a linebacker. He was supposed to be the heir apparent to Matt Blair. It didn't work out at linebacker. Matter of fact, he was benched for a minute
Yeah.
in '86, and then the Vikings needed defensive line help, and I believe Mark Mulaney kind of helped him with the defensive end position. And as I say, the rest is history.
Because they went when he was drafted in '85, the Vikings ran a 3-4, and he played outside linebacker.
Yeah, he
In
was a 3-4.
87 is when they switched back to a 4-3.
They switched back in '86.
So, and then
They
that's when
switched. They switched back in '86 when Jerry Burns took over, and he brought in Floyd Peters as a defensive coordinator. They switched to a 4-3 right away, but he was still playing outside linebacker.
Right. In his first year as defensive end, that's when he got his 21.5 sack season.
No, that was when he got his 11.5.
So
21.5 he got 2 years later.
Okay, so that's wrong on here then.
Yeah. Are you looking at Wikipedia?
Yeah, they have it wrong on there.
They got it wrong.
Yeah. So it says 89 is the season he had 21.5 sacks, but it says that's his first season at defensive end.
No. He had already been to 2 Pro Bowls before then.
Yeah, it says Dolman's third season, the team decided to switch to a 4-3, which resulted in a move to the 4-3. And his third season, 89,
yeah,
the move paid off as he recorded 21 sacks.
Ignore Wikipedia on this one. I got this.
I kind of figured you would.
Just ignore Wikipedia on this one. 87 was a strike shortened year, so he missed 3 games with the strike, but he still got 11.5 sacks. Just think if he had played in those games. Yeah. Actually, 4 games, because 1 week was canceled. So there's 4 games. He could have had 18, 19.5 sacks in those games too. And then in 88, he only got 8 sacks, but he made the Pro Bowl. And the defense was number 1. The defense was number 1 from like 88 to 89. They were number 1. And then in 89, he had 21 sacks. Keith Millard had 18.5 sacks as a defensive tackle, which was a record until Aaron Donald broke it.
Yeah.
And so Chris was a Pro Bowler from 87 to 93 with the Vikings. And how many is that? What is that? 87, 88, 89, 99.
Well, it says he was 8-time Pro Bowler, 87 to 90 with Vikings, 92, 93, and 95.
Oh, he didn't go. That's right. He didn't go in 90. He didn't go in 91, but he went in 92, and he went in 93.
Yep. And then he missed another year. Then he went 95, missed another year in 97.
Yeah. And that was, he still put up pretty good numbers with
the Niners. 11 sacks in 96 and missed a Pro Bowl.
Yeah. That's because he was in Atlanta. I believe.
No, he was
he was a Niner.
First year in San Fran, he had 11. He had 11 sacks, 2 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries. How the hell do you not make the Pro Bowl?
I'm trying to think who the hell did. I know Haley made the Pro Bowl that year. Charles Haley in the NFC.
So he finished with 150.5 sacks.
Yeah. And he finished his career with the Vikings.
Yes, he signed in 1999.
He came back in 99. And he almost had double-digit sacks then. I think he had 9.5.
8. Well, you could be right. Like I said, the kid have it wrong on here, but I think the stat part is kind of hard to get wrong on here because they just copy and paste the stats from the NFL. But
right,
I mean, it could be. But but he had 150.5 sacks. He also had 8 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, and 2 passes defended, and then 44 forced fumbles, 24. Fumble recoveries.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's what happened was with him, why he didn't stay was it was the new CBA had came in, so a lot of them players were going to test free agency and see what they could get anyway. Yeah. And he was still under contract to us, and we traded him to Atlanta. He did not want to be in Minnesota. So he ended up going to Atlanta for 2 years with Atlanta, and then he signed with the Niners. The Niners had a really nice front four when he got there. They had Dolman and Barker, Roy Barker at the ends, they had Dana Stubblefield and Bryant Young at the tackles. They had a nice defensive line.
That was 96 to 98.
96, yeah. And they played in the NFC Championship game in 97. They lost to the Packers. But yeah, they were and then he came back and, he's no longer with us. But yeah, I mean, when you think about the Viking Hall of Famers, I'll tell you what, the lines of scrimmage, the offensive lines and defensive lines are very well represented.
Yeah.
Very well represented.
And he's second all time in the season for sacks. Jared Allen broke it with 22 sacks.
Yeah, by what, 22?
22. Yeah, Jared Allen 22 in 2011.
Yep. And Chris was at that game.
Yeah.
Chris was at that game.
It was the last game of the season, I think.
Yeah, it was the last game of the season against the Bears. And Chris was there. He was cheering him on because he figured he was going to break it. I thought he was going to break it. I thought he was going to get the sack record in the league for a season. And
well, technically he does because that last sack that Strahan got with Favre kind of gave it to him.
That shouldn't even count.
Yeah.
My God. That shouldn't even count.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
He's not on this show.
No. Funny thing is, we drafted him because he could catch. Imagine that.
I think the spirit of Darren Nelson has jumped into TJ Hawkinson and KJ Osborne.
It's definitely in KJ Osborne. That's for damn sure.
All right. So that was 2012. So we have a run here. The next couple of guys are pretty close together. So this next guy, all he does is catch touchdowns. 2013. Has his number retired, Ring of Honor, all that good stuff.
Chris Carter?
Best hands ever in the NFL. Well, some people want to say Larry Fitzgerald, but yeah, at the time he retired, he had the best hands ever. Got him for $100 off the waiver wire from the Eagles.
Chris Carter. Best $100 ever spent.
Yep.
Yeah. What else can be said about the guy? I still remember. I remember when he played at Ohio State. He got in some trouble in Ohio State, and then the supplemental draft, he went to Philly, and all he did was catch TD passes there, but it wasn't enough for Buddy Ryan, so he waived him. And I was actually shocked that the Vikings got him. I saw the name. I'm like, the Vikings got Chris Carter? And this is in 90. I'm just like, the Vikings don't usually go after players like that, and they had him. I'm just like, okay, let's see what he can do. And
yeah,
the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, so the year that he was released, he only had 45 receptions, but he had 11 touchdowns.
Yeah, he caught nothing but TDs.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he caught the game winner against the Vikings in 89. Minnesota had like a 6-3 lead, and I think it was a turnover late in the game. And I think he outjumped Carl Lee for the TD pass.
Here's a name that people would remember, at least I do. So the Vikings claimed Chris Carter off waivers on September 4th, 1990 for only $100. The two receivers that were in front of him when he signed were Anthony Carter, everybody knows that,
Jones.
And Hassan Jones.
Yeah. Yep.
God, that's like that's one of the best names ever.
Hassan Jones?
Yeah.
I know.
He's on the Vikings all-name team.
Yeah, he was. And I'll tell you what, that was a very good combo. That was a very good combo for wide receivers that the Vikings had.
Yeah,
but the only problem with Hassan was he was injury prone. He got in a lot of injuries. So, and plus the Vikings were shaky at quarterback. You go from Wade Wilson to Tommy Kramer to Rich Gannon, and then back to Wade and everything else, and You're right, Norpheus. Buddy Ryan did give him a wake-up call.
He says that.
Yeah, Chris said that's the best thing that could have happened to him.
He appreciates everything Buddy Ryan did for him. He says getting cut from the Eagles was the best thing that ever happened to him.
But Hassan looked good in 84. Though,
he made 84 look good.
He made 84 look good. He didn't make it look like Irv Smith Jr. did.
Yeah.
Or
Oliver.
Yeah. But I mean,
or Andre Allison.
oh God, I forgot all about that dude.
He's forgettable.
I forgot all
The
about
only
him.
reason I remember him was because I said is because when he got number 84, he says, "I'm going to make you forget the other guy who wore 84."
And I was like, yeah, right, dude. I'll forget your name before I forget who the other guy was.
I mean, come on, Andre.
I'll
Come
forget you were
on,
even
man.
on the team before I forget who the other guy was. And plus, he was wearing it with them damn high school uniforms, so that made it even
Oh
more
God, those
forgetful.
uniforms are so ugly. I said Madden has Moss on the cover
Yeah,
for whatever new update.
yeah.
They have him in those uniforms on the cover. His
Which
2000,
ones?
2010 season uniform.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Oh, because that's the last jersey he wore with the Vikings.
yeah.
God.
Those jerseys were ugly. Those are the worst uniforms ever. I like the ones they have now. Not as good as the original ones, but I do like the ones they have now.
What they're wearing now is tolerable.
Well, because if you look at the shoulders across,
Mhm.
they're like it's supposed to be the Viking longboat. That's why it goes up on the
Just put
sleeves.
some damn stripes on it. Stop with the
Yeah,
damn, oh, this represents a boat. This represents a Gallahorn. Put some damn just stripes on it and be done with it. My
I
God.
love the ones from the '98 season.
I love those jerseys, and I love the
Yeah,
ones the throwbacks they wore in the season opener. I love those.
yeah.
You know, it's like
Or the
just
purple pant uniforms.
yeah. I did see pictures of those purple pants back in the day. I'm kind of like, yeah, I can see why. Yeah,
Well, they had those 2010 uniforms. They had purple pants with those too, but they didn't wear them a lot.
I those high school uniforms I want nothing to do with.
Yeah,
Literally want nothing to do with at all.
yeah. So in 1990, his first season with Minnesota, he had a revenge game against the Eagles. He had 6 catches for 151 yards and a touchdown. That was his best game of the year.
He
And
had one
then
touchdown or two touchdowns.
in that game, he had a 1 touchdown. He had 3 for the season.
Okay.
But 1991 is when he became the guy in Minnesota. He had 72 receptions for 962 yards. But he only had 5. He only had 5 touchdowns that year. That's because the change of that's after the season, a disappointing season. Head coach Jerry Burns retired.
Yep.
Stanford head coach Dennis Green was named to replace Gen 92. Began the house cleaning process. Released running back Herschel Walker, Wade Wilson, Keith Millard
Mm-hmm.
when he first came in. And then 92 season is when he started his career.
Pro Bowls.
What's is amazing because he had those numbers in 92 because that was the year Gannon and Salisbury alternated at QB.
Mm-hmm. He didn't start putting, honestly, Chris really started putting up numbers when Warren Moon got here.
Yeah. Well, and he put up 53 receptions, 681 yards, and 6 touchdowns, but he missed the final 4 games of the season.
Which year?
92. He had the broken collarbone.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. 93, yeah. He didn't exactly, he played steady. He didn't, but we had McMahon and Salisbury as quarterbacks. That was the biggest problem. You know?
Yeah. And they lost in the wild card that year to the eventual Super Bowl champions, Redskins.
Yep, to the Giants. They lost in 92 to the Redskins, and then they lost in 93 to the Giants.
Yep. That was the year we had McMahon.
Yeah, that was 93 was McMahon.
Yeah.
And the next year they got Warren Moon in 94, and that's when Chris's productivity picked up, but so did Jake Reed.
Yep.
You know. But yeah, I think Chris, I mean,
he got 122 passes in 95. So the 95 season, he got 122 passes, 1,371 yards, and 17 touchdowns.
Yep.
But the team finished 8-8 because the defense was so bad.
Oh, God. I remember that. Yep, I remember that.
That was the first year that the Vikings had a bad defense in a long time.
Yeah, and then he let it go to hell.
Yeah.
Did he let it go to hell? Chris ended his career with the Dolphins. And he went to the Ring of Honor right away.
Yeah, he was let's see, he ended the season in 22 with the Dolphins,
Yep.
and he was. Let me see. When did he go to the Vikings Ring of Honor? I know it was pretty close. Let me
Oh
see.
three. I think it was 03.
I know it was pretty close
Yeah. I
to
think
when
he
he
went in.
retired.
I think he went in 03.
So the Vikings Ring of Honor, Chris Carter went in 23. Yep. So it was the next year, September
Huh.
14th. Probably that's probably opening day of the 2003 season.
Right.
Yeah. And they probably, I think they retired his number the same day. Because Chris
Oh
Carter,
yeah, he did. Yeah, they retired his number.
yeah.
Yep. They retired his number. Yep.
So, but all he does is catch touchdowns.
Yeah.
No, I actually went when he was playing for the Dolphins and the Vikings. I was living in South Florida at the time, and I remember the Dolphins and the Vikings playing that game. That's the year that he played for the Dolphins, and I remember him. Gary Anderson was a stellar kicker, I think.
He was still our kicker, and he was telling
And
the Dolphins that he wasn't going to make the
yeah, he
kick.
wasn't going to. He's on the sideline going, he's not.
Yeah.
He can't make it from that
He can't
distance.
make it. It's too far for him. It's
And
too much too
and
far.
Gary Anderson nailed it.
Anderson nailed it, and then you see the camera pan on Chris, and he's just got this look on his face. He just had that look.
Yeah,
I'm just like, oh, that's classic.
because I was wearing my Vikings jersey when I went to the game,
Right.
and people were saying, "Why'd you guys get Chris Carter?" I said, "Well, towards the end, he became kind of a malcontent in the locker room."
He was an ass. He started.
Yeah.
What happened was he started to preach too much,
Yeah,
and he got free run of that team with Denny. But once Denny was gone, it was everybody was kind of, and what's the name got sick of his shtick too, and that was Randy Moss. Randy
Yeah.
got sick of him. So I mean, he wasn't. He was liked, but he wasn't liked. He just was. The players just didn't want somebody preaching at him all the damn time, which is what he did.
yeah.
So, and it was just a new day in Minnesota. So, they went in a different direction.
Kind of, you're a Hall of Famer, but you wore up your welcome.
Exactly.
So I believe the next year, let's see, was there multiple? Nope, there was only one. Okay. So it's 2015, 2016, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a run of year after year after year of Vikings being elected to the Hall of Fame. So this guy, so Chris Carter was 2013. So 2015 was the next year. I'm trying to find my place again. But this guy, he waited too long. He should, by the time he got elected, he was gone mentally from all the concussions from the CTE. He could barely even talk. He had dementia. It was sad to see.
Oh, Mick Tingeloff?
Yeah.
I talked to just after he went in the year later, I ran into Bob Lertzema, and Bob told me Mick doesn't even remember going into the Hall of Fame. That's how bad his dementia was. And even when he went to the ceremony, he had to leave early because of was it Sundowners?
Yeah, and Tarkington pretty much did everything.
Fran talked for him.
Yeah.
Fran talked for him, which I thought was pretty emotional.
37
years. Yeah, he waited 37 years.
That goes back to them not winning anything.
Yeah,
because he was better than Webster.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, Webster was a steroid case.
Yeah,
rest his soul, but he was a steroid case. He was, and a lot of those Steelers were. That's why Fran talked about it when they lined up on him in the Super Bowl. He's like, these guys are on some shit. And it was at that time the steroids were what, horse pills? They were, horse.
It was. Things. They were made for horses back then.
Yeah, they were made for horses, and the Steelers are taking them. And it's kind of like, okay, and the Steelers, a lot of those Steeler linemen are gone.
Yeah,
a lot of them are gone, and Joe is still with us, which kind of leads me to believe that Joe didn't use the steroids.
Well, he had natural ability. So.
Right, but everybody is gone.
Yeah.
And the first one I remember to go early was Steve Furness. And he was just incredibly jacked. Well, then now all the other ones have gone. And Mike Webster, when Mike Webster went, I knew it. But with Mick, I mean, it was just sad. But like France said, 37 years. Come on,
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
37 years. And then when you do get him in there, he doesn't remember. He doesn't remember. He was signing autographs, had no idea what he's doing. They just literally, I guess it was his wife or somebody would just hand him the paper and or the picture, and he'd write his name. It's just that's sad that it came down to that. It's just, and I hope that doesn't happen to Jim. But I mean, Jim's 85, and for Jim, it's hard to get around. So, hopefully they get him in there soon.
So my guess is, why did Nebraska wait so long? Because he went in the Nebraska Hall of Fame the same year as he went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Because Nebraska's had such a run of great linemen, and Mick was, and it's a different era, and Mick played in an era that a lot of these people in this generation know nothing about.
So he's also the second Viking on this list that went undrafted.
Yeah. Yep. John Randall's the other one. He was the most celebrated free agent there for a time because he signed as a free agent and became an all-pro. He was actually the face of the Vikings, even with Fran Tarkenton. He was actually the face of the Vikings. And that's who their marketing was around. It was around Mick Tingelhoff.
And so far, he is the only person on this list to play his whole career in Minnesota.
Yeah, he's the only one. Only one. And when he retired, Bud didn't want him to retire because they were transitioning to Tommy Kramer. So Bud wanted some stability on that offensive line for Tommy. And, Mick was like, I can't do it anymore.
Of course, he's one of the Vikings that has his number retired, which he should.
Mm-hmm.
He also has 240 consecutive starts.
Yep.
NFL champion 69, 5-time first team All-Pro, second team All-Pro once, 6-time Pro Bowler, Vikings Ring of Honor, number retired. So yeah, Mick Tingelhoff he deserves all the accolades he gets. I just hate. I wouldn't wish dementia and Parkinson's disease on my worst enemy.
He didn't remember any of it.
It's so
he
sad.
Did not remember it.
Stuff like that just breaks my heart, man.
Yeah, he did not. He was there, but that's it.
Yeah,
there in body.
He was there physically. Mentally, he was not there.
Yeah, mentally, he was not there, and that was a sad part. That was a really sad part.
Even if he got inducted 3 years earlier, he would have been fine.
If he got inducted 20 years earlier, he would have been fine. If they had got him in there instead of holding that Super Bowl against him, the Super Bowls against him, he'd have been fine. There were guys that went in there before him, and I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
He
was elected to the Hall of Very Good class in 2003. Get the hell out of here with that crap.
It's just, let's be honest, it's bullshit. Just be honest.
This is stuff like that as Viking fans, we need to be more pissed off about.
Yeah.
Just because the Hall of Fame is supposed to be an individual award, not a goddamn team award.
Here's another thing, too. You need your Vikings front office to really put a campaign in there to get these guys in because they're not doing anything.
Hire me, I'll do it.
The ones that are usually doing it now it's usually a grassroots with either former players or somebody who's taking the initiative, but the Vikings as an organization do not take an initiative.
His 32nd year of eligibility is when he went in.
Yep. Yeah, and I think he went as the old timer. I think he went as an old timer.
That is just that. I'm sorry, but that's just ridiculous. He's one of the best centers ever.
Yeah.
Way too long. I mean, retire in 78. You go in at 2015.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There is no excuse for that. None whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't. That's just whatever. Who was next?
This guy played 2 seasons. One great season. Next season, not so much. We talked about him earlier when we talked about John Randall. That's Brett Favre out there. I got to go watch Brett Favre. 2016.
He's a Packer. I don't even talk about him next.
Well, like I said, he did play. I said we were going to talk
Yeah,
about
he
all
played
Vikings.
2 years with us in the ugly ass uniforms. Whatever. Next.
One year was good. Next year was
Yeah. Next.
was crap. So he was so Brett Favre was 2016. This guy also played only 1 year for Minnesota, and he's the second kicker on the list.
Oh, Morton Anderson.
Morton Anderson.
Yeah, he's a kicker. Next.
Yeah. He had one good year with Minnesota. I get he had one good.
I mean, you put it this way: you got Morton Anderson in there. Where's Fred Cox?
Yeah.
I mean, the man invented the Nerf football. Where's Fred Cox? Come on.
Didn't he also wasn't he known for something else too?
He was a chiropractor.
So no, like on the football field, did he also? He wasn't just a kicker, was he?
Fred Cox was just a kicker.
No, he was
just a kicker. He was a running back, but
okay.
he got moved. He was just a kicker. I can't see Fred being that fast as a running back. I just can't.
Yeah. So those last two guys were a quick hitter because we need to spend time on this guy. He is from my wife's state. He's the reason why my name is Catch 84. 2018. The man, the myth, the legend, the greatest of all time, Mr. Randy Moss.
He put this team on the map in the 90s. He did. He made the Vikings must see.
Well, Zoe will tell you the reason he's a Vikings fan is because of Randy Moss.
A lot of them. That's the reason. A lot of with this young generation, this is the last. The reason they're Viking fans is because of number 80. Is because of 84. Randy Moss, super freak. I mean, they just that's what they know.
Straight cash, homie.
Yeah, I mean, he literally put this team. Well, he made the Vikings must see TV. Put it that way.
Yes, and that Thanksgiving game in 1998 was the main reason why that break against the Cowboys, and he was mad at the Cowboys because Jerry Jones said
on him.
Jerry
was going to draft him.
Jerry Jones said, "If you're there, we're taking you."
Yep, Jerry was going to draft him, and then
I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah, and he paid the price. He literally paid the price. But here's the thing: what does that tell you about Jerry? When he was a free agent, Jerry still didn't sign him.
Yeah.
Oh wait, he had T.O. Did he have T? He had T.O.
I would take Randy Moss every day.
I would have took Randy
every
Moss
day of the week and twice on Sunday over T.O.
Yeah, I would have took Randy in a heartbeat. But yeah, I mean, so he was gonna get back at it. He was gonna make people pay. He really was.
Yeah.
The why Red McCombs traded him, I don't know. But then Red McCombs sold the team, I think a month or so after he traded Moss. And the Wilfs were ticked off because Ziggy said he would never have traded Randy Moss. That's one of the reasons he brought Randy Moss back was for ticket sales.
He should have played his whole career in Minnesota. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he should never have left. He should never have left.
His 84 should be retired.
Well, now here's the funny part. He goes to New England. They're undefeated until the Super Bowl. He catches a TD pass in the Super Bowl, and they don't win.
That was the only time I ever cheered for the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
I mean, they don't win. It's kind of like, so Randy's kind of like, what the F,
Yeah.
But yeah, he should never have left this team.
Yeah.
Never had left this team.
So his first NFL game,
I was there.
He had 95 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I was there
on 4 catches.
Yep, I was there.
His first catch was that 11-yard touchdown pass where he kind of bobbled it and he caught it.
Actually, I think it was longer than that.
And then he also had a touchdown of 48 yards and a 31-yard touchdown in the same game.
Yeah, I was there.
21-0 lead. That was the start of a fantastic. Oh my God, that season. Oh my God, that season was so awesome until the end. And
until
in Monday night, week 5 against the Packers, he had 5 receptions for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was the game that they blew. They blew the Packers out that game, I think.
Yes, they did. They beat them 38-24, but the Packers were well out of it.
Well, that's when Doug Peterson came in into those great
Yeah.
touchdowns in the rain and all that type of
Well,
stuff.
and then they had the kickoff return for a touchdown too. So it was garbage points.
And then the second meeting, Moss had 153 yards and a touchdown, 28-14 victory.
But that second game was actually, I remember it because that Viking defense actually put a beating on Brett Favre.
Yeah.
He actually took a beating that game. But
that's why Doug Peterson came in.
Yeah. But I mean, that was 98 was just one of those years. Right up there with 75. Both went down the way they did. But yeah, like I said, Randy put this team on his back, and they were must-see TV. He got butts in the seats. He got them on TV. He got notoriety to this team. He was just a PR magnet for this team.
And they the playoffs that year, they beat the Cardinals 41-21. I remember that game.
Yep.
And then he had 4 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. And the game against the Falcons, he had 6 receptions for 75 yards and a touchdown also.
He is hurt, though.
So
he played with a pulled stomach muscle, they said.
Yeah. Well, he was also hurt in that Green Bay playoff game that they won 31-7.
Mm-hmm.
When he did the moon. I think that was the moon game.
Yeah, that was his last game. That was his next to last game as a Viking. They played Philly the next week, and then he was gone.
The 2005 seasons when they traded him to the Raiders for Napoleon Harris.
Oh, the linebacker.
Yes. And then that's when they took who as the first pick in that draft. The next
Troy Williamson.
Yep.
Troy Williamson.
But no, Moss the Vikings have had some good receivers in their history, and he's the best talent wise.
Yeah, he's
skill wise. He should never have played for another team. He should have played all his years for the Vikings. He would be the all-time Vikings leader in every reception category. It wouldn't even be close.
I still don't even
People
know
would be going Chris Carter, who?
I still don't even know why he was traded. I don't know why he was traded in the first place. McCombs traded him. That was Red McCombs.
So, Moss was traded to the Oakland. It doesn't say on here why he was traded.
Yeah,
but in his first season, was his first game with the Raiders, he had 5 receptions, 130 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, that was the whole thing.
So he just kept, but he also the next game he had 5 receptions for 127 yards against the Chiefs, but they lost. They had a bad season.
Yeah, it was the Raiders. That's what you expect.
And it says the Raiders' poor play was a theme throughout the season. While Moss suffered nagging injuries to his limited production, he surpassed 1,000 yards. Yeah. So, yeah. The Raiders went 4-12 that year.
Yeah, they were not very good. Not very good.
Yeah.
So. Norpheus has got something here. I still think that trade was induced by the mooning in Green Bay. Okay. There's a couple of things that happened that year. The last game of the year is also the game where Randy walked off the field early
against the Redskins
before the game was even over. He walked out. That pissed off some of the players. And then the mooning game was the next week. So it could have been a PR thing. It could have been a thing where the players were just kind of tired of Randy. One of the main guys in the locker room that was a player talk for the players was Matt Burke, the center. So it could have been that. They never gave us a reason, or at least I never heard a reason why the Vikings traded Randy Moss, because like I said, it had to be a month or two later that the Wilfs had bought the team. Well, no, it wasn't the Wilfs. It was announced that McCombs had sold the team to Reggie Fowler.
Yes.
and
He didn't
Fowler
qualify.
didn't qualify, but the Wilfs did. I think he had the Wilfs in his group. So
Yeah.
the Wilfs bought the team.
Yeah.
But there was never anything that said why they traded him. And Ziggy came out and said, I would never have traded Randy Moss. So that's why, and that's why Randy came back, because he knew Randy would sell tickets. He would sell tickets.
Yeah. So the Patriots sent Randy Moss and 7th round pick to Minnesota in 2010. November, less than 4 weeks after being traded to Minnesota, Vikings head coach Brad Childress told Viking players in a team meeting that Moss was going to be waived by the team after he criticized Childress and teammates in a press conference following the Vikings' loss to the Patriots. Just before the press conference, Moss reportedly told team owner Ziggy Wilf that Childress was unfit to coach in the NFL. God, was he right?
God.
Wolf reportedly considered firing Childress and keeping Moss, but Moss was officially waived the next day. So Wilf was going to fire Childress and keep Moss, but Childress released.
Childress cut him.
Wow, what a piece of crap! What a piece of shit Childress is.
Yeah, Childress cut him.
Oh,
and
you hurt my feelings. Bitch, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, if you knew how to freaking coach football, but here's the problem though. We kind of repeated it now with the coach we have. We got another Childress now. Not to the point of stupidity, but to the point of the guy has never called plays in his life. It's just, and it took. This is where you have to get on management. It took Randy Moss directly calling Ziggy Wilf to tell him what was going on.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? When you're the owner of the team and you have no idea what the hell's going on with your team?
That's because they're absentee owners.
Thank you. It took Randy Moss literally calling him to get him that information.
And someone probably told Childress that Moss made that call, and that's why Childress probably released him.
Well,
because there was probably a lot of narcs in that locker room.
Yeah, but at that time, from what I understood and from what somebody told me, Childress had lost that locker room. He had lost that locker room, and it all stemmed from Brett, the whole Brett fiasco. But he wasn't registering with the players anymore. Not that he ever did. And okay, with Ziggy saying he would have kept Moss and fired Childress. Childress probably figured, guess what? I'm running a team. I'm cutting them. What are you going to do? Fire me? And the answer is yes. His ass got fired.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, they lost to the Packers too. Remember, they got embarrassed, like 31-3 or 38-3. And the next day, Childress was fired.
Yeah, because they lost to the Patriots, and that's when Moss said that he does.
That's what Moss heaped a lot of praise on Belichick. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
why wouldn't you? You played for the guy, so he heaped a lot of praise on Belichick.
See, if I was Ziggy Wolf, I would have because it says here the Tennessee Titans were the only team that claimed him. So if the Titans didn't claim him, I wonder if the Wolves would have fired Childress and brought Moss back. Is that? Can you do that in the NFL? You can release a player. Can you bring him back if no one claims them?
They become a free agent after a certain amount of time. I think it's you put them on you basically put them on waivers. Unless you had a no recall thing where you bring them back, which that might have been Childress was in charge of that. Childress was the one.
That's why you can't give a coach ultimate power,
right? And they did, and so. Norpheus, I wanted Harbaugh.
But he was too much like Zimmer.
Yeah, and management once again.
But now if they fire KOC, they can go to Harbaugh.
Harbaugh's not coming back.
Yeah.
Harbaugh will never come back. Harbaugh could end up in Chicago. I'm just gonna put that out there. But I mean,
the Bears fans would flip out. They would go nuts.
Oh,
a
they
former
lose.
quarterback coming home.
Yeah, former Ditka guy coming back to
Yeah.
coach the team. Yeah.
And you want to talk about shoving it in your face and
Oh, well, and it would, because guess what? We had him in our building and didn't sign him.
yeah.
We let him walk out of here without a contract. That's just bad business. You just don't do that. And but with Randy, I mean, Randy goes on to San Francisco, but I think that the Titans signed him and he didn't do anything in Tennessee at all.
No, he did not. He did not do anything in Tennessee.
Yeah.
He only had 80. He had 6 catches for 80 yards in 4 games.
Yeah, he didn't do anything. So, but yeah, that was Childress all the way. And I'll tell you what, when Randy
played for the 49ers.
Played in the Super Bowl, and then I think he was done after that, wasn't he?
Yeah, 2012 was his last season.
Okay. When he came back, the one person he thanked the most was Denny Green. He wished Denny was there when he got put into the Hall of Fame. A lot of those players, like the press up here was negative on Denny. Them players loved Denny in that locker room. There were a lot of players that loved Denny. And Randy was one of them because Denny took the chance on him.
Yeah.
He's
because he was a 21st pick that year. And the Bengals passed on him twice, I believe.
Yeah, the Bengals did. I think one was Akili Smith, and the other one was a linebacker.
Let me see. So Moss, skipped his senior year. Senior year went to the NFL. Let me see. During the 98 draft, Moss was projected as a high first-round pick. Was taken by Minnesota with the 21st pick. After a number of NFL clubs, even those who needed a wide receiver, were concerned with Moss's well-documented legal problems. Before the draft, Moss was quoted as saying teams that passed on him will regret it. The one thing they see is what kind of player I am and the kind of guy I really am.
Okay, I'm going to bring up something about that draft. Okay, when the draft happened, did you watch it?
I watch every draft.
Okay. Remember, when that first draft choice is announced, it's usually the commissioner that announces it, right?
So first round, yes.
For the first round, it's the commissioner, right?
Yeah.
The commissioner did not announce when the Vikings selected Randy Moss. It was Gene Washington that announced it. It was not Paul Tagliabue. He announced everybody except Randy Moss.
Yeah.
He announced everybody. I thought that was weird when it happened.
Yeah, it says Moss grew up a Cowboy fan, and then when the Cowboys wanted Moss, but because of the many off-field incidents of their own, team owner GM Jerry Jones did not feel the team could draft Moss. Moss felt like the Cowboys lied to him because they had told him that they would draft him. On draft day, Dallas went so far as to have a scout in Charleston, West Virginia, the same town where Moss and his mother were watching the draft. Dallas star Michael even called to apologize to Moss because of Irvin's own off-the-field problems that were the main reason why Moss was not drafted by Dallas.
Okay, let's pause there. And is Michael Irvin calling Randy Moss, telling him about his off-field problems?
Yeah.
We ain't even talked about Michael Irvin stabbing his teammate over a goddamn chair seat for a haircut that could have caught him a murder charge.
Which is why the Cowboys didn't draft Moss, because Michael Irvin was doing all his shenanigans, and they didn't want another.
Because Michael Irvin was being an asshole.
Yeah, but Randy Moss was pretty much his career was well behaved. He had a couple instances, but nothing as bad as Irvin.
Yeah, and Jerry Jones let that go.
Yeah,
get the fuck out of here, Jerry. Excuse my language. Get the fuck out of here.
Hey, I'm glad he passed on him.
I am too. You'll fuck up.
Yeah. I mean,
I am too, but you guys
probably would have won another Super Bowl.
You're going to pass on a once in a lifetime talent.
Yep.
Because you got a washed up has-been average wide receiver right now who's
His whole career was average. Michael Irvin is only in the Hall of Fame because he played for the Cowboys in those 3 Super Bowls.
Thank you.
He's average. He is an average wide receiver.
He's an average loudmouth.
The only reason he owes Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman the Hall of Fame. That's the only reason is because he's a Cowboy and he won those 3 rings. That is it.
And Jerry Jones covered up all his bullshit.
Yeah, and Terrell Owens is better than Michael Irvin.
Yeah. Jerry Jones covered up all his bullshit. You know, first of all, you covered up a damn manslaughter charge there, Jerry.
Got away with cocaine charges?
Got away with cocaine charges and shit. It's like, give me a break. But yet we're not going to take Randy Moss for his off-field. It's like,
anything near as bad as what Irvin did.
No. Not even close.
Near.
Serves you right, Cowboys. It couldn't happen to a nicer friggin' franchise.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. I'm like, screw them.
I wear my Moss jersey. Cowboy fans look at me and go, you could have had him.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. You could have had him twice.
But then they go, well, how many rings do you have? I go, I don't give a fuck.
You ain't got none, goddammit. Stop talking.
I graduated high school in 93. You ain't won since I've been out of high school, so what now?
they haven't did a damn thing since Friends was like the top-rated TV show in friggin' America. God.
Yeah, he was also one of the criminals for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, and who was his coach? Jimmy Johnson. What the hell? What does that tell you about Jimmy Johnson?
That he doesn't care about players, how they behave. He only cares about winning.
Yeah. I look at that Miami team and I ask myself, how the hell did y'all get a saint like Dwayne Johnson? All them a-holes, and yet The Rock was a part of that too. Really? What the hell?
Well, according to Warren Sapp, Dwayne Johnson wasn't very good.
He took his job.
Yeah, Warren Sapp's like
he took his.
Warren Sapp's like, I'm glad Dwayne Johnson's a good actor because was not very good at football.
Well, and plus Warren even said they all knew he was going to wrestle.
Yeah,
they knew he was going to wrestle. They're talking real wrestling, not that WWE scripted shit. But they knew he was going to wrestle. So when he took his job, he didn't feel bad. Yeah.
Warren Sapp's like, I got to play NFL for a living. You can go ahead and be a wrestler.
But, yeah. So he was, but you think about that team, and I'm just like, what the F? They just, and then he brought it to the Cowboys, and the Cowboys those years were that same damn team. And then, Barry Switzer comes in. He was terrible.
We're going to do it, baby.
Yeah. He was
Jimmy Johnson's players.
He won because of Jimmy Johnson's players.
You were the biggest buffoon as a head coach.
And then you're going to pass on Randy Moss? Your logic doesn't make sense there, Jerry. The logic doesn't make sense at all.
I guarantee you, if Randy Moss would have went to Arkansas, he would have drafted him.
I don't know. That's hard. And Jerry never even played it. He played at Arkansas, but he wasn't even a starter, I think. I don't even think he was a starter.
Switzer played, though.
Switzer played, and so did Jimmy Johnson. Yeah. That's how they all know each other.
Yeah, there was the only national championship in Arkansas history, 64.
Yeah. But you pass on a once-in-a-lifetime talent like Randy Moss, good.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Put us on the map.
How many Viking fans do we have?
Yeah, that put us on the map.
So great show tonight.
We forgot one, but he's more of a Seahawk, and that's Steve Hutchinson.
Yeah, because he's recently.
Yeah. Hutch is more of a Seahawk.
He's not even on this list.
Yeah, he went in, I think, right after Randy.
So.
Yep, but so it was a good show.
Let's see if Hutchinson. Yeah, he was. He had that great year in '98. He was a poison pill guy in 29.
The poison pill guy in 05.
Yeah, 09.
06, yeah.
06 is when we signed him, but he was the best offensive lineman in 09 that we had.
Yep.
He was he was a poison pill. That was another rule change.
Yeah, but this was a good show.
So next week we are doing the 4 Super Bowls. We're going to talk about the 4 Super Bowls next week.
Yeah, that's
Tony's going to be the main voice on that show.
We're not. Wikipedia is no longer in use as far as this show is concerned.
Yeah, is concerned. Yes, yeah. I went to the Vikings website. They just have the Hall of
Blurbs.
Famers listed, but they don't have
Yeah.
any information. It's just these are the Vikings Hall of Fames and that Hall of Famers, and that's it. So I might use a different reference.
That if you go to the Vikings site, unfortunately, they got more listed on free agents that didn't make the team than they
Yes.
do on their Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad.
Yeah, because there's 22 Vikings. Technically, there's 22 people who play for the Vikings or in the Hall of Fame. The Vikings only have 15 of them listed.
Yep.
So they're even missing 7.
Yep.
So, but yeah. So next week we are doing the 4 Super Bowls. And then, like, if you guys have any ideas for our show, go ahead and put them in the comments below. After the show, we'll look at the comments and we'll take your ideas in. Like we've already done one show. We did
Give us your
Sarah's.
ideas, guys.
Yeah.
Give us anything Viking related connected to the NFL,
Yeah.
or stories or things you heard that you want to know if they're true or not. I might have the answer to them. If not, I could always research it. Just give us your ideas, your memories, stuff like that. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, this is, like I said, there is no other show like this anywhere, not on any of the podcast anywhere, not on YouTube. This is the #1 history show for the Vikings.
This is with most of your podcasts nowadays, and I'm not ripping them at all, but
yeah,
you can talk about today's current Viking situation ad nauseum, and it gets old.
Yep.
And sometimes you need kind of like a history to kind of set up the present.
Yep.
That it all melds together. The past does affect the future, and it does affect the present. So that's why we're here to kind of bridge the gap and to let like a younger generation. There's a lot of younger generations out there that have no idea of this team prior to 1998 and Randy Moss. So we're kind of bringing that.
And for some, 2009.
And for 2009, there's like a whole generation that have never saw the Purple People Eaters, Fran Tarkenton, Tommy, and any of those guys. So we gotta, we're kind of like that bridge because we're part of that generation that was there. I, living in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, St. Paul, saw a lot of it, grew up with it, read the newspaper reports, luckily still remember. So
one of the few.
And so what I don't, I'm willing to go and research, but off the top of my head, it's we're pretty much the only ones doing it. And I love the content that's out there with everybody else. I mean, the current stuff, there's a lot to talk about with this team currently. But we're the only ones that are talking about the past. So, and we'll blend it into the current because it all meshes. So thank you for watching us.
Speaking of 1998.
Oh, what's up, Zoe?
But he's a Lions fan anyway. So really
he's a Lions fan, so I'm going to hear about it now. I'm going to hear about it. Oh man. So, but everybody, thank you for watching.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We really do.
Listening to me babble.
Please, guys, hit the like and subscribe button as well. We got to get it up to people, so regular Viking fans, when they search Vikings in the YouTube search bar, the show comes up. We really want to get this show out there, so we can get this show out there. People need to know about this show.
Yeah. Zoe got me this weekend. That's what I'm scared of. I'm gonna hear about it this weekend. Unfortunately, I'm gonna hear about it. But,
so, like I said, we appreciate every one of you all to show up. T-Bass, Norpheus, Skull Mafia. We appreciate every one of y'all showing up. Davey Change was here for a little bit. Sarah comes in a lot. So we appreciate every one of you. Like I said, we're still trying to figure out the time. We're trying not to go on the same time somebody else is going on, but it seems like someone else is always on. that when we go on. So we're still working on the time, but I think we're going to try to keep it Tuesdays. We at least want to keep the night consistent. But if you guys have an idea for a time that you guys can know you can show up for, you can throw that in the chat too. What time you guys think would be the best time for us as well?
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're open to suggestions, folks.
Yeah.
Any and everything. We're putting it out there. I enjoy it because it gives me the chance to help those that don't know the history and kind of get them up to speed with what has gone on with this team in the past. And it does connect to the current.
Yes.
So, I mean,
to understand the suffering of being a Vikings fan, you guys.
Yes, to understand the long suffering of a Viking fan, you have to go all the way back to 1969 when it started.
Yes.
You have to go back. I mean,
especially that 75 season. We'll get into that 75 season here coming up. But
God, I might tear up for that one.
In case you guys are wondering, the 75 season is the push off.
Yes, that's the Hail Mary by them bastard Cowboys. And they're bastards. I don't care.
Every time I see it, every time I see like a Drew Pearson jersey, I go, push off.
Well, you're nice to me. I say, motherfucker.
I live in Texas, so I don't want to be too crazy.
And see, I'm the type that would go down there and start cursing out I talk about Staubach, I talk about him, Dorsett. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't care. But yeah, so, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. Like I said, we really appreciate everybody.
Thank you
who follows us every time. We have this network has its loyal listeners, and some of those come in here too. I know it can be a lot of watching Vikings stuff, and we appreciate you guys coming in and watching us every time. So till next week.